Life is full of decisions. Some are small, what to eat, what to wear. But then there are the big ones, the ones that keep you up at night, the ones that make your stomach twist in knots. Should you stay or leave? Should you fight for something or let it go? Should you take the risk or play it safe? At some point, we all face choices that feel impossible. We worry about making the wrong move, about what others will think, about whether we'll regret it later. But what if I told you that there's a way to navigate life's hardest decisions with confidence, peace, and clarity? That's where Stoicism comes in. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, faced war, betrayal, exile, and even slavery. Yet they made decisions with a level of calm that seems almost superhuman. How? Because they mastered a way of thinking that cuts through fear, doubt, and hesitation. And you can too. Listening to these 100 Stoic lessons will change the way you approach every choice in life. You'll learn how to silence fear, trust your judgment, and move forward with certainty. You'll stop overthinking. You'll stop second-guessing yourself. And most importantly, you'll stop letting emotions control you. This isn't just about making better decisions. It's about transforming the way you live. When you apply these Stoic lessons, you won't just make good choices. You'll feel stronger, clearer, more in control of your destiny. By the time you reach the last lesson, you won't fear tough decisions anymore. You'll welcome them, because you'll know that no matter what life throws at you, you have the wisdom to handle it. Let's begin. When faced with a difficult decision, your emotions will try to hijack the process. Fear will tell you to run. Anger will push you to react. Excitement might tempt you into a reckless choice. But the Stoics knew one thing for certain. Feelings fluctuate, but reason remains steady. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Strength isn't about suppressing emotions, but about not letting them dictate your decisions. Imagine you're caught in a storm at sea. The waves crash violently, but deep below the surface, the ocean is calm. Your emotions are the storm. Your reason is the depth. The deeper you go, the clearer your decision-making becomes. Before making a choice, pause, breathe, step back. Ask yourself, am I making this choice because it's right, or because I feel a certain way right now? Would I make the same decision if I weren't feeling this emotion? The moment you separate your emotions from your reasoning, you take control. You become the master of your choices, not their victim. And with mastery comes clarity. Clarity also comes with the ability to slow down before making a decision. There is a common regret that echoes through history. I wish I had thought before I acted. A hasty decision is rarely a wise one. The Stoics understood that time is the ally of wisdom. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of our rushed decisions come from imagined urgency. We think we must respond immediately, send that angry text, quit that job impulsively, make that major life change on a whim. But true strength lies in restraint. When faced with a difficult decision, practice the power of pause. Before responding, take a step back. Give it an hour, a day, even a week. Ask yourself, what would my calmest, most rational self do? Will this decision still make sense tomorrow? Am I responding or am I reacting? The pause creates space for wisdom to enter. It allows you to see past emotions, expectations, and pressure, and in that space, the right choice becomes clearer. A wise decision made slowly is always better than a foolish one made fast. Even with patience and clarity, There will be choices that feel overwhelming simply because you are trying to control too much. You don't have power over everything. Some choices, no matter how much you analyze, stress, or plan, are beyond your control. The Stoics understood this deeply. Their core teaching: control what is yours, let go of the rest. Epictetus put it simply: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. Imagine you're playing a game of chess. You control your moves, your strategy, but you don't control your opponent's next move. If you spend all your energy worrying about what they'll do, you lose focus on what you can actually control: your own play. Life is the same. You don't control the economy, the weather, other people's actions, or the past. But you do control your response to challenges, your attitude and mindset, your discipline and effort. Next time you're faced with a tough decision, separate what is in your control from what isn't. Focus only on what you can influence. This simple shift relieves anxiety, sharpens focus, and leads to better choices. A wise person doesn't waste energy on the uncontrollable. They direct all their power into what they can change. And that is where real strength and true peace begins. Now that you've learned to detach from emotions, pause before reacting, and focus only on what's in your control, let's go even deeper. The next lesson will show you how to make choices based on timeless principles, not fleeting desires. Clarity is the foundation of wise decision-making. Without it, the mind becomes a storm, whirling with emotions, doubts, and external pressures. Like a traveler lost in the fog, moving without clear direction only increases the chances of stumbling. Every rushed decision carries the risk of regret. Seneca once wrote, "We must give ourselves time to think, for haste is the great enemy of wisdom." The mind, like water, clears when left undisturbed. When confusion takes over, the first rule is simple: stop moving, slow down, let the fog settle. The world constantly pushes for speed. We live in an age where instant decisions are not only expected, but often demanded. Notifications buzz, messages flood in, and choices feel urgent. But urgency is often an illusion. How many life-altering decisions truly require an immediate response? Very few. Even in high-stakes situations, the difference between reacting instantly and taking a moment to breathe, reflect, and regain composure can mean the difference between wisdom and disaster. When the mind is chaotic, decisions are reactive rather than deliberate. When faced with a difficult choice, create space for clarity. Solitude is a powerful tool. When the world is quiet, the mind can hear itself think. The greatest leaders, philosophers, and strategists throughout history all had one habit in common. Before making big decisions, they withdrew. They sought isolation, reflection, and stillness. Marcus Aurelius found clarity in journaling his thoughts. Seneca found it in deep contemplation. Some found it in nature, in long walks, in silence. You must find it in whatever works for you. Writing is one of the most effective ways to distill thoughts. When words are put to paper, chaos is organized. A decision that seemed impossible in your mind suddenly becomes manageable when seen in writing. Ask yourself, what do I truly want? What am I afraid of? What matters most in the long run? If you struggle to answer, then clarity is still absent. Only when the fog lifts does the right path reveal itself. Yet, even with clarity, temptation lurks in every decision. The easiest choice is rarely the best one. What feels good in the moment often leads to suffering later. Marcus Aurelius warned, "If it is not right, do not do it." If it is not true, do not say it. The Stoics understood a hard truth. Impulse is the enemy of wisdom. A decision made in a moment of weakness can cost years of regret. Short-term comfort is deceptive. It seduces with ease, promising relief from effort, discomfort, and patience. But the disciplined path, the one requiring endurance, sacrifice, and effort, is the one that leads to lasting peace. Every decision must be weighed not just in the present, but in the future. Instead of asking, "What do I want now?" ask, "What will my future self thank me for?" The hardest path in the present often leads to the easiest future. When you stand at a crossroads, resisting the pull of impulse is the test of wisdom. The wise do not act out of fleeting emotions. They act out of principles, foresight, and understanding. The Stoics trained themselves to think beyond the next step. They trained their minds to think 10 steps ahead. The pain of discipline now is always less than the pain of regret later. But how do you cultivate this level of patience? How do you resist acting out of immediate emotions? The key is learning to step outside of yourself. To see clearly, one must learn the art of detachment. This is the practice of stepping outside oneself, becoming the observer rather than the subject. The Stoics understood that as long as you are trapped inside your emotions, you cannot see clearly. Seneca advised, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, we exaggerate our fears. We chase desires blindly. We mistake fleeting emotions for deep truths. To break free, see yourself as an outsider. Imagine you are giving advice to a close friend facing your exact situation. What would you tell them? If someone described your exact problem, what logical solution would you offer? The gap between how we advise others and how we advise ourselves is often filled with emotion. But by detaching, by analyzing from a distance, your decisions become clearer, sharper, and wiser. The greatest decisions in life are not made in moments of chaos, but in moments of calm. A decision made with clarity, patience, and detachment is far more powerful than one made in confusion, impulse, or fear. But to take this further, the next lesson will explore an even deeper layer, stripping away illusions and seeing reality as it truly is. Because the ability to make wise decisions isn't just about choosing wisely, it's about seeing reality without distortion. So often, people believe they are making rational choices, when in reality, they are making choices based on fear, desire, or social conditioning. To truly master decision-making, you must learn to separate truth from illusion. How many times have you made a decision based on what you thought would make you happy, only to realize later that your expectations were flawed? The Stoics taught that most suffering comes not from reality itself, but from our perception of it. Epictetus stated, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them." In decision-making, this means that you must first question your own assumptions. Are you seeing the situation as it truly is, or are you seeing it through the lens of past fears and desires? Are you making this choice because it aligns with your values, or because you are afraid of disappointing someone? Are you pursuing this path because it truly fulfills you, or because it looks like success in the eyes of others? The mind is filled with biases, social pressure, past traumas, ego, fear of change. But a Stoic mind is trained to cut through these illusions and see clearly. One method is radical self-questioning. Before making a difficult decision, ask, what if my assumptions about this situation are completely wrong? What if my fears never come true? What if I have overestimated the consequences? Often the mind creates unnecessary suffering. It imagines worst-case scenarios that never happen. It assumes obstacles where none exist. A wise decision-maker constantly challenges their own beliefs, ensuring that they are not acting from a place of fear or false assumptions. This process requires self-awareness, and self-awareness requires brutal honesty. Many avoid deep reflection because they fear what they will find. But the truth is this: the strongest minds are those that seek truth, no matter how uncomfortable. They do not cling to comforting lies. They do not make choices out of denial. They face reality fully and completely. Making decisions with this level of clarity, detachment, and truth-seeking is a rare skill, but it is a skill that can be cultivated. It requires patience, reflection, and the willingness to question your own mind. But once mastered, it transforms not just the way you make decisions, but the way you see life itself. Every decision you make either brings you closer to wisdom or further away from it. The path to wise decision-making is not a one-time realization. It is a lifelong practice. And in the next lesson, we will go even deeper into understanding how to remain calm and unshaken, even in the face of the most difficult choices. Because ultimately, the ability to make tough decisions is not just about knowing what to do. It is about having the strength to follow through, even when it is hard. Fear has a way of shrinking the world around you, making possibilities seem smaller than they are. When a difficult decision arises, fear whispers all the worst-case scenarios, urging you to retreat, to avoid, to stay safe. But fear is rarely a wise advisor. It is instinctual, primitive, and often exaggerated. Instead of letting fear guide your choices, turn to courage. Not reckless bravery, but the kind that acknowledges risk while still moving forward. Courage gives you a wider perspective, one that allows you to see beyond the immediate discomfort and recognize the long-term consequences of your choices. When fear says, "What if you fail?" courage answers, "What if this is the path to something better?" Fear seeks comfort, but comfort rarely leads to growth. The toughest decisions require you to step beyond what is safe and known, trusting that even uncertainty is part of the process. But the mind plays tricks, and often what you fear is not the situation itself, but the story you have told yourself about it. Decisions become tangled in emotions, assumptions, and past experiences. This is why it is essential to separate facts from opinions. Most of the weight of a tough decision comes not from reality, but from your perception of it. If you are struggling, ask yourself, what do I know for certain? What is speculation? What biases are influencing my thoughts? It is easy to let fears, hopes, and social expectations cloud the truth, but clarity only comes when you strip away illusion. A wise choice is based on what is real, not on what you wish were true. And often the hardest part of decision-making is not the choice itself, but cutting through the noise that distorts it. External noise is another factor that complicates decision-making. The world is filled with people who want you to move at their pace. When others impose their urgency on you, it creates artificial pressure, making you feel as if you must decide now, this second, or lose everything. But their urgency is not your emergency. A rushed decision is often a regrettable one. True wisdom lies in taking the time necessary to think things through, to sit with the choice, instead of reacting impulsively. When faced with pressure, pause, step back, ask yourself, is this my timeline or someone else's? If a decision is worth making, it is worth making well. And that requires patience, not panic. When faced with difficult decisions, it's easy to get lost in the complexity of options, the weight of consequences, and the fear of making the wrong move. But in these moments, one of the most powerful tools at your disposal is your values. Your values serve as a compass, guiding you through uncertainty and helping you make choices that align with the person you want to be. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What kind of life do I want to build? Often, the right choice is not the easiest one, nor the one that pleases others, but the one that stays true to your core principles. It's tempting to choose what brings immediate comfort or approval from those around you, but this kind of short-term thinking often leads to long-term regret. True confidence in decision-making comes not from seeking external validation, but from knowing you are acting in accordance with what you deeply believe. Think about the biggest regrets people have in life. Rarely do they say, "I wish I had followed the crowd more," or "I wish I had done what made others happy at my expense." Instead, they regret the times they betrayed their own values, the moments they compromised their integrity for temporary gain, or the times they allowed fear or pressure to dictate their actions. When you align your decision with your values, regret fades, because even if the outcome isn't perfect, you can stand firm, knowing you acted with integrity. And when you act with integrity, even the hardest choices bring a sense of peace. The toughest decisions become clearer when viewed through the lens of what you stand for. But sometimes, even when guided by values, a decision still feels overwhelming. This is when it helps to zoom out and take a broader perspective. A difficult choice may feel all-consuming in the present moment, but ask yourself, will this matter in a year, 5 years, a decade? Many of the decisions we agonize over today will fade into insignificance with time. The fear of temporary discomfort or uncertainty can keep you stuck. But when you step back and look at the grander scheme of your life, many dilemmas become far less urgent. The mind has a way of inflating problems, making them seem bigger than they really are. But when you widen your perspective, when you see life not as a collection of isolated moments, but as a continuous path of growth, you start to realize that most choices are not final. You will always have opportunities to adjust, pivot, and course correct. Think about how many past decisions once felt like life or death scenarios, yet today they barely cross your mind. That relationship you obsessed over, that job you worried about leaving, that fear of taking a risk. It all seems so small now. What changed? Time provided distance, but you don't have to wait years to gain that perspective. You can consciously step back now and ask yourself if the choice you are agonizing over truly deserves the weight you are giving it. Instead of focusing on the immediate discomfort a decision might bring, consider its long-term impact. Clarity often comes when you stop thinking in terms of days and start thinking in terms of decades. Even with this clarity, it's important to accept that no decision is perfect. The desire to make the right choice can become paralyzing, but the truth is, every option carries risk. If you wait for certainty, you will wait forever. The pursuit of perfection often leads to inaction, and inaction itself is a decision to stay stagnant, to let opportunities pass, to allow life to make choices for you instead of taking control. There will never be a perfect moment. There will never be a perfect decision, but there will always be the opportunity to make the best decision you can with the information you have right now. Perfectionism in decision-making is often a disguise for fear. It is the mind's way of avoiding discomfort, of delaying responsibility. But life does not reward hesitation. It rewards action. The most successful and fulfilled people are not the ones who never make mistakes, but the ones who move forward adjust, and refine their approach as they go. Instead of seeking the illusion of a flawless choice, aim for the best possible choice that aligns with your values, considers the bigger picture, and allows you to progress. A decision made with thoughtfulness and courage, even if imperfect, is always better than a decision avoided out of fear. The path of indecision is often more exhausting than the path of action. When you avoid making a choice, the weight of uncertainty lingers, draining your mental energy, creating stress, and keeping you trapped in a cycle of doubt. But when you commit to a decision, you free yourself from that burden. Even if challenges arise, at least you are moving forward. Imperfect action is always better than perfect hesitation. Progress comes not from knowing all the answers, but from having the courage to take the next step, even if you are unsure where it will lead. When faced with a difficult decision, it can be easy to feel trapped, overwhelmed, or too close to the problem to see it clearly. The mind gets tangled in emotions, fears, and hypothetical scenarios that seem larger than life. This is where the view from above technique, a powerful Stoic practice, can bring clarity. Imagine yourself looking at your situation from the sky, detached from your personal emotions, seeing it as just one small event in the vast timeline of your life. Better yet, zoom out even further. Picture the world from space. Billions of people exist, each dealing with their own struggles, each facing their own crossroads. From this cosmic perspective, how significant does your current dilemma really seem? This exercise is not meant to diminish the importance of your choices, but to remove the false weight that panic and anxiety often attach to them. It helps you see your problem for what it is, one moment among countless others. Most of the things we stress over are fleeting. What feels monumental now will eventually fade into the background of your life. The decisions you make are simply steps in your journey, not the final destination. No single choice defines your entire existence. Every decision, even if it turns out to be the wrong one, moves you forward. If it leads to a mistake, you gain wisdom. If it leads to success, you gain progress. Either way, you evolve. The fear of making the wrong decision often keeps people stuck, but growth comes from movement, not from endless hesitation. It's better to take a step and adjust your course than to remain frozen, waiting for absolute certainty that will never come. Life is a constant process of learning, adapting, and refining your approach. A useful way to break free from hesitation is to compare your current decision against your deathbed perspective. Imagine yourself at the end of your life, looking back on today. Will this choice still seem so overwhelming? Will you regret being too afraid to take a chance? Or will you regret letting fear dictate your actions? The things that truly matter in life often become clearer when we look at them from the perspective of our final days. You will not wish you had played it safe or spent more time overanalyzing minor details. You will wish you had been bold, taken risks, and chosen based on what truly mattered to you, not based on fear, doubt, or the expectations of others. Most of the time, we already know the right choice deep down. The real battle is finding the courage to make it. When you strip away the noise, the pressure, and the imagined consequences that will likely never come to pass, what remains is a simple question. What would my future self thank me for? That is usually the choice worth making. Difficult decisions often feel like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss of uncertainty. We fear that one wrong step will send us plummeting into regret, failure, or irreversible consequences. But history teaches us that no decision holds absolute power over our destiny. What truly matters is not just the choice itself, but how we respond to its outcomes. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, faced choices far more daunting than most of us will ever experience. They navigated war, betrayal, exile, loss, and the relentless unpredictability of life. And yet they made their decisions with clarity, not fear. Their approach was simple but profound. Base choices on reason, not emotions. Prioritize virtue over comfort. Accept that uncertainty is inevitable, but fear is optional. One of the most effective ways to clear your mind before making a tough choice is to ask, if Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus were in my position, what would they do? This shifts your perspective away from personal stress and into a framework of wisdom that has stood the test of time. The Stoics would remind you that the goal is not to seek the easiest decision, but the one that aligns with reason, discipline, and long-term well-being. They would encourage you to strip away the noise, the opinions of others, the fleeting anxieties, the illusion of control, and focus on what truly matters. Once you remove emotion from the equation, a difficult decision transforms into an opportunity. Instead of seeing this choice as a threat to your comfort, see it as a test of your character. Life constantly presents us with moments that define who we are. Every hardship, every difficult crossroad is a chance to prove resilience. This is how the Stoics approached adversity, not as something to be feared, but as an opportunity to demonstrate inner strength. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Every choice, no matter how stressful, is a moment to define yourself. Will you react with panic, or will you step forward with calm resolve? The biggest mistake people make when facing tough decisions is believing that their choice will permanently determine the course of their life. This kind of thinking creates paralysis. It convinces us that unless we make the perfect decision, disaster will strike. But the truth is, very few decisions are truly life or death, unless they literally are. Most choices, even when they feel monumental, are not final. If you make the wrong choice, you can pivot. You can adapt. The fear of making the wrong decision often causes more suffering than the decision itself. Think about the last time you were stressed over a big choice. At the time, it felt like everything depended on it. But looking back, you likely realize that it was just another stepping stone in your journey. Life moved on. You adjusted. The same will happen with this decision. In a year, 5 years, or 10, the stress you feel now will be a distant memory. What matters is making the best choice you can with the wisdom available to you now, then embracing whatever outcome follows. When facing a difficult decision, it's easy to get caught up in the tension of choosing between multiple paths. The mind starts racing, creating worst-case scenarios and imagined consequences, making it seem as though no choice is truly safe. This hesitation is natural, but it's also dangerous, because sometimes the real danger isn't making the wrong decision, it's making no decision at all. Inaction often carries consequences just as severe as any choice you might make. By avoiding a decision out of fear or uncertainty, you risk allowing external forces, other people, circumstances, or even time itself, to make the decision for you. And when life decides for you, you lose control. You end up in a place you never chose, wondering how things went so wrong. But the truth is, the moment you chose to do nothing, you made a decision to surrender your agency. Consider what happens when you allow hesitation to rule your life. What doors close because you waited too long? What opportunities disappear because you were afraid to take the first step? What regrets will you accumulate by letting indecision dictate your future? The mind often tricks us into thinking that waiting is harmless, that sitting on a decision is a form of prudence, but in reality, hesitation can be a silent thief of progress. You stand at the edge of action, frozen, while the world moves forward without you. A Stoic understands that avoiding a decision is, in itself, a decision to do nothing, to remain stagnant, to relinquish control. And that, in most cases, is the worst choice of all. When the path ahead is unclear, there's one principle that cuts through all the mental fog: memento mori. This simple Latin phrase, meaning "remember that you will die," is one of the most powerful Stoic tools for decision-making. At first, it might sound grim or unsettling, but in truth, it's liberating. Memento mori is not about obsessing over death. It's about living with urgency, clarity, and purpose. If you knew your time was limited, what choice would truly matter? What would you prioritize? What fears would suddenly seem trivial? When you put your decisions in the context of your mortality, the weight of unimportant things fades away. The opinions of others, the fear of failure, the discomfort of uncertainty, these concerns lose their grip. Because when viewed through the lens of death, only what is truly important remains. Think about it this way: a year from now, will it matter that you hesitated because of fear? 5 years from now, will you regret prioritizing comfort over courage? 10 years from now, will you wish you had taken the leap instead of staying in the safety of indecision? Many of the things we agonize over, embarrassment, rejection, making a mistake, are temporary, but regret is permanent. The things we don't do tend to haunt us far more than the things we do. When you remind yourself that your days are numbered, you stop making decisions based on fear. Instead, you start making decisions that align with your values, your integrity, and the kind of life you actually want to live. You move from a place of hesitation to a place of purpose, and suddenly the choice becomes clearer, not because the path itself changes, but because your perspective does. One way to strip away emotional confusion when making decisions is by writing down your options. The mind is a chaotic place, full of swirling thoughts, doubts, and emotions that make it difficult to see the truth clearly. But when you put your choices on paper, something powerful happens. You gain distance. You step outside of the whirlwind of emotions and into the realm of logic. What once seemed like an impossible dilemma now appears as a simple set of alternatives. Seeing your options visually allows you to weigh them objectively, as though you were advising a friend rather than making the decision yourself. And in many cases, the best choice becomes clear the moment you see it in black and white. Writing also reveals hidden biases. Are you leaning toward one option because of fear rather than logic? Are you rejecting another because it challenges your comfort zone? When you externalize your thoughts, you expose the unconscious forces that influence you. Writing gives you a chance to edit your perspective, just as you would refine a poorly written draft. The Stoics believed in reason and clarity, both of which improve when ideas are taken out of the mind and placed in the physical world. Beyond that, writing forces you to slow down. It prevents you from making impulsive, emotionally driven choices. It gives you time to analyze the potential outcomes, to consider how each option aligns with your values, and to ensure that your decision is not dictated by fear, pressure, or fleeting emotions. The very act of writing brings structure to the chaos of decision-making, turning a jumble of thoughts into a clear path forward. Imagine you are trying to decide between two major life choices. Perhaps it's leaving a job versus staying in one that feels stagnant, or walking away from a relationship versus trying to make it work. If you simply sit with the decision in your mind, emotions will dominate the process. You might feel trapped between anxiety, nostalgia, hope, and fear. But if you write it down, something shifts. You see the pros and cons objectively. You recognize where you're making excuses. You gain clarity that was previously buried under emotional noise. This is what the Stoics practiced, stripping away illusion and seeing reality for what it is. They knew that decisions made in a storm of emotion were rarely wise. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote daily in his journal, not because he needed to record events, but because writing was his tool for self-mastery. It allowed him to take a step back, to gain clarity, and to ensure that every decision was aligned with his principles. By acknowledging that inaction carries weight, remembering that time is finite, and removing bias through the act of writing, decision-making becomes a more intentional process. Instead of feeling trapped between choices, you begin to see them as opportunities to exercise wisdom. And when you choose with clarity and purpose, you strengthen the very thing that Stoicism seeks to cultivate: mastery over the self. Every tough decision is an opportunity to practice wisdom, an opportunity to exercise courage, an opportunity to strengthen your ability to navigate life with clarity and purpose. And as the Stoics knew well, the more you practice, the stronger you become. When faced with a difficult choice, one of the most powerful ways to remove emotional noise is to ask yourself a simple question: what would a wise person do? This mental shift pulls you out of the heat of the moment and forces you to think beyond personal fears, desires, or biases. Wisdom transcends the immediate, and by aligning your decisions with timeless principles, you avoid making choices that serve only the short term. Picture someone you deeply respect, perhaps a historical figure, a mentor, or even the idealized version of yourself in 10 years. If they were in your position, what path would they take? Would they let fear dictate their choice? Would they allow external pressures to push them in a direction that conflicts with their values? Likely not. The wise do not act out of impulse, but out of principle. They recognize that every decision, no matter how small, is a brick in the foundation of their character. When you filter your choices through the lens of wisdom rather than ego, you make decisions you can stand by in the long run. This leads to an essential realization: the easiest decision in the moment is often the wrong one. Humans naturally seek comfort, but Stoicism teaches us that what feels good now can easily lead to suffering later. Short-term comfort is deceptive. It whispers promises of relief, ease, and escape, but in reality, it often delays or even magnifies the problem. Think about the difference between avoiding a difficult conversation and having it with honesty. In the short term, avoidance feels easier. You don't have to deal with discomfort, confrontation, or potential fallout. But in the long term, problems fester, resentments build, trust erodes. What was once a small issue becomes an unmanageable one. This is the cost of choosing ease over courage. The same principle applies to nearly every tough decision in life. Staying in a toxic job or relationship because leaving seems daunting. Ignoring financial discipline because reckless spending provides temporary pleasure. Choosing laziness over discipline because effort requires discomfort. Each time you prioritize short-term ease, you mortgage your future peace. The Stoics understood that discipline is not suffering. It is the art of securing long-term well-being by resisting the illusion of immediate gratification. Of course, not all decisions allow for the luxury of time and deep contemplation. Sometimes life demands an answer now. When forced to decide under pressure, A simple rule serves as an anchor: default to integrity. When the clock is ticking, when emotions are high, when uncertainty clouds your judgment, the best action is always the one that preserves your character. Imagine a moment of crisis. Someone is pressuring you to compromise your principles, bend the truth, or make a decision that benefits you but harms others. In these moments, the mind often scrambles for justification. Just this once. No one will find out. It's not that big of a deal, but the Stoic knows that every decision, no matter how small, shapes who you are. Every compromise on integrity weakens your foundation. Every principled stand strengthens it. Seneca reminds us, what is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. True integrity means choosing what is right, even when it is difficult, even when no one is watching, even when it costs you something in the short term. Because in the long term, integrity builds unshakable confidence. A person who consistently chooses integrity never has to fear being exposed, never has to live with internal contradiction, never has to suffer the torment of knowing they betrayed their own principles. Life's toughest decisions often test our ability to hold the line, to resist temptation, to stand firm under pressure, to choose what is right over what is easy. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Each time you choose wisdom over impulse, long-term gain over short-term comfort, and integrity over convenience, you become the type of person who navigates life with strength, clarity, and self-respect. At the end of the day, this is what Stoicism is all about. Not just making the right choices, but becoming the kind of person who makes them effortlessly. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in decision-making is to trust the process rather than obsess over the outcome. The human mind is wired to seek certainty, yet life guarantees none. This is where many become paralyzed, endlessly overthinking every possible consequence, fearing the unknown, and second-guessing themselves into inaction. The Stoic approach, however, is radically different. Focus only on making the best decision possible based on logic, wisdom, and principle, then let go. Outcomes are shaped by countless factors beyond your control. A perfectly planned decision can still yield unwanted results, just as a poorly made one can sometimes work out in your favor. But the true measure of success isn't whether things turned out exactly as you wanted. It's whether you made the decision with clarity, reason, and integrity. When you place your faith in the process rather than the result, you free yourself from unnecessary worry and regret. You can stand firm knowing you acted to the best of your ability. And in the long run, consistently making rational choices leads to far better outcomes than reacting emotionally to every uncertainty. Of course, many decisions don't feel simple because the mind is cluttered with unnecessary details. People agonize over choices not because they are truly difficult, but because they are distracted by irrelevant concerns. The Stoics teach the power of stripping decisions down to their essential core. What truly matters in this situation? What is the fundamental question you need to answer? Everything else is noise. Imagine a person considering a career change. Their mind might race through an exhausting list of uncertainties. What will people think? What if I fail? What about the office culture, the location, the benefits package? But the real question is simple. Will this move bring me closer to the life I want? Everything else is secondary. When you eliminate the distractions of social pressure, fears of hypothetical failures, and inconsequential details, you simplify the decision-making process. Clarity replaces confusion. This is why great thinkers and leaders often develop mental filters to separate what is essential from what is trivial. If a detail does not fundamentally alter the wisdom of the decision, it is unnecessary. If a thought is based on assumptions rather than facts, it is unnecessary. If a concern is rooted in fear rather than logic, it is unnecessary. The fewer distractions you allow into your mind, the more easily the right path emerges. However, even with clarity, there are moments when making decisions becomes exhausting. This is because of a phenomenon called decision fatigue, the gradual depletion of mental energy after making too many choices. The mind, like a muscle, has a limited reserve of strength. Every decision, whether large or small, drains it. The more decisions you make in a given period, the harder it becomes to think clearly. This is why some of the greatest minds, from Steve Jobs to Albert Einstein, simplified their daily choices, wearing the same type of outfit every day, following predictable routines, so their mental energy was preserved for important matters. Decision fatigue is real, and it is dangerous. A fatigued mind makes rash choices, falls into impulse-driven thinking, and defaults to the easiest rather than the wisest option. The Stoic approach is to recognize this pattern and resist making critical choices in a state of exhaustion. If you are mentally drained, delay the decision. Step away. Allow your mind time to rest, whether through sleep, solitude, or even a simple walk. Many of history's greatest solutions were not found through intense deliberation, but through moments of distance and calm reflection. When you return to the decision with a clear mind, what once seemed overwhelming suddenly becomes obvious. The right choice was there all along. It was simply hidden beneath the weight of exhaustion. The best choice is often the hardest. This is a truth that most people instinctively know, but often try to avoid. Growth rarely comes from comfort. The human mind is designed to seek the path of least resistance. Yet, history and experience show that the most fulfilling, life-changing decisions often require discomfort. A person choosing between staying in a stable but unfulfilling job or taking a risk on a new opportunity will naturally gravitate toward the safer choice. But what kind of life is built on always avoiding discomfort? The Stoics believed in voluntary hardship, the practice of deliberately exposing oneself to temporary difficulty to build resilience. Making tough decisions is no different. Choosing growth over ease strengthens character, while choosing ease over growth leads to stagnation. When faced with a difficult choice, ask yourself, am I avoiding this because it's wrong for me, or am I avoiding it because it's hard? If the answer is the latter, that's precisely why you should consider it. True progress is rarely found on the easy road. Another essential lesson is to recognize that no single mind holds all the answers. The greatest obstacle to making wise decisions is assuming that you already know everything you need to know. The Stoics emphasized humility in thinking, an awareness that our own perceptions are limited and our minds are prone to biases. Seeking different perspectives is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. The best decisions are made when you step outside your own mental echo chamber and consider viewpoints beyond your own. When struggling with a tough decision, ask others who have faced similar situations. Read philosophy, history, and psychology. Challenge your own assumptions by playing devil's advocate against yourself. A good rule of thumb: if your decision feels absolutely certain without any questioning, you probably haven't examined it deeply enough. Wisdom grows from humility, not arrogance. However, even after gathering perspectives, many people fall into the trap of regret-based thinking. They obsess over whether they will regret a decision later, which often leads to choosing the safest option rather than the right one. The fear of regret is a deceptive force. It makes you believe that avoiding action is the best way to avoid pain. But in reality, the biggest regrets in life usually come not from the risks taken, but from the opportunities avoided. Stoicism teaches that regret is meaningless because it is a fixation on what cannot be changed. What matters is acting in the present with the best wisdom available to you. If you make decisions based on your principles, with clear reasoning, and in alignment with your values, regret has no place in your mind. You may not always get the outcome you desire, but you will have the peace of knowing you acted rightly, and that peace is worth more than any fleeting sense of security. Other people's opinions are not your guide. It is easy to fall into the trap of living for others, seeking their validation, fearing their judgment, or making choices based on what will make them happy rather than what aligns with your own values. Advice is valuable, and wisdom can be found in the perspectives of those who have walked similar paths. However, the ultimate responsibility for your choices falls on you. No one else will live with the consequences of your decisions as much as you will. The Stoics remind us that external approval is fleeting and unreliable. One moment, the crowd applauds you. The next, they criticize you. If your choices are constantly shaped by the shifting opinions of others, you will never truly live for yourself. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your power lies in aligning your choices with reason, integrity, and virtue, not with the ever-changing expectations of those around you. This leads to another dangerous pitfall: making decisions just to please others. Many people spend their entire lives trying to avoid conflict, earn admiration, or fulfill someone else's dream at the expense of their own. They take jobs they don't want, enter relationships that don't serve them, or suppress their true desires out of fear of disappointing someone. But what is the cost of this sacrifice? A life filled with resentment, unfulfilled potential, and a deep sense of disconnection from oneself. Stoicism teaches that decisions should be made based on principle, not public approval. Seneca once said, "He who seeks wisdom will be alone in the crowd." This doesn't mean rejecting all advice or refusing to consider the perspectives of loved ones. It means standing firm in your values, even when your choices are unpopular. A strong person does not bend simply because others disapprove. If your decision is rooted in reason and virtue, the opinions of others, no matter how loud, should not dictate your course. However, one of the greatest challenges in decision-making is recognizing when others are trying to manipulate you. People often disguise their own self-interest as concern for your well-being. They pressure you, guilt-trip you, or create a false sense of urgency to push you into a choice that benefits them rather than you. This is why the ability to pause and reassess is crucial. If a decision feels rushed, emotionally charged, or heavy with guilt, take a step back. The Stoics emphasize emotional control for a reason. If someone's words make you feel desperate, afraid, or obligated, those emotions may not be coming from within. They may be deliberately planted. The best way to counter manipulation is with clarity. Ask yourself, would I make this decision if there was no pressure? Would I still choose this path if I were alone with my thoughts? If the answer is no, then it's time to reconsider. When you reclaim your decisions from the expectations, demands, and manipulations of others, you regain your autonomy. Life's toughest choices become clearer, not because they are easy, but because they are truly yours to make. Ask yourself, if no one were watching, what would you choose? Strip away the expectations, the social pressures, and the imagined judgment of others. What remains? That is your truth. So many decisions are made with an invisible audience in mind. How will this look? What will people say? But living for the approval of others leads to a hollow existence. If your choices are shaped by external validation, then you are not truly living your life, but a performance of it. Stoicism teaches us to act with integrity regardless of who is watching. Epictetus reminds us, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This means making choices that align with your values, not with the expectations imposed upon you. The path to an authentic life is often a solitary one, and the right choice may be the one that no one understands but you. Do not fear disapproval. One of the great illusions of life is believing that there is a way to move forward without upsetting anyone. No matter what you do, someone will disagree. If you choose one career, some will say you should have chosen another. If you walk away from a toxic relationship, some will question why you didn't stay and make it work. If you pursue your dreams, some will call you unrealistic. You cannot escape judgment, so why let it dictate your choices? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. People's opinions are outside your control. The only thing within your power is to act according to your reason, virtue, and wisdom." The fear of disapproval loses its grip once you accept that you cannot please everyone, nor should you try. But in today's world, there is another trap: mistaking volume for wisdom. The loudest voices are often the least informed. Social media, news outlets, and public discourse amplify those who shout the most, not those who think the deepest. A decision made under the influence of noise rather than reason is rarely a good one. The Stoics remind us to step back and filter the signal from the noise. Just because a belief is popular does not mean it is true. Just because someone speaks with confidence does not mean they are right. The wise do not seek the most attention, they seek the most truth. Seneca advised, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." Surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking rather than reinforce comfortable illusions. Listen more to those who encourage reflection rather than those who demand immediate action. When faced with a tough decision, do not let the volume of external opinions drown out the quiet certainty of your own reason. The right choice is often found in the stillness, not in the noise. Avoid letting society define your success. From the moment we are born, we are fed a script: what success looks like, how it should be measured, and the timeline we should follow. But is it truly your success, or just a borrowed definition from culture, family, or social expectations? Many suffer under the weight of someone else's dream, pursuing money, status, or recognition, only to find themselves empty. Stoicism urges us to strip away external definitions and define success on our own terms. Epictetus reminds us, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." If success to you means peace of mind, deep relationships, or living in alignment with your values, then that is the only measure that matters. The question is not whether society approves of your path, but whether you can look at your life and say, "This is the life I want to be living." But defining success in your own way requires courage, because some choices, while right, are costly. Your character is more important than winning. The world often rewards shortcuts, deception, and compromise. You will face moments where bending your principles could lead to an easier path, a faster promotion, or temporary gain. But at what cost? Seneca warns, "Wealth is the slave of the wise, the master of the fool." If winning requires you to betray your integrity, is it truly a victory? History remembers those who stood firm in their values, not those who accumulated wealth without wisdom. No amount of external success can compensate for inner dishonor. A person who loses everything but retains their virtue has lost nothing. A person who gains everything but sacrifices their integrity has lost everything. Making the right decision often means standing alone. The right decision may make you unpopular, but if it aligns with your values, accept that burden. There will be times when people disagree with you, criticize you, or even turn against you. But Stoicism teaches us to measure our actions by our own conscience, not by public approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Public opinion is outside of your control. Your only duty is to do what is right, not what is liked." Many of history's greatest minds, from Socrates to Galileo to countless reformers, were condemned in their time for challenging the status quo. Yet their choices shaped the world. If they had chosen comfort over principle, their names would have been forgotten. When you face a decision that risks disapproval, ask yourself, would I rather be true to myself and misunderstood, or betray my values and be praised? The path of integrity is not always easy, but it is always right. Courage in decision-making is rare, which is why it's so powerful. Most people hesitate, overanalyze, and wait for certainty that will never come. Fear of failure, rejection, or making the wrong choice paralyzes them. But history has shown that those who dare to choose boldly are the ones who shape the world, while those who hesitate remain stuck in mediocrity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Bold choices open doors, while hesitation keeps them closed. Courage doesn't mean recklessness. It means choosing what's right despite uncertainty. Every great achievement, every turning point in a person's life started with a moment of courage. The moment you choose growth over comfort, action over indecision, you separate yourself from the crowd. But what holds people back from making courageous decisions? Fear distorts reality. Most fears are not rooted in facts, but in exaggerated worst-case scenarios created by the mind. How often have you feared a confrontation, only to find it was far less painful than expected? How many times have you dreaded an outcome, only to realize later that it wasn't as devastating as you imagined? Seneca observed, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Fear magnifies problems, making them appear larger than they are. It tricks you into thinking you are weaker than you are. It convinces you that failure will be unbearable, when in reality, failure is often the very thing that teaches you the most. When fear clouds your mind, ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Often the answer isn't as bad as you assume. Most of life's tough decisions are not life or death matters. You might fail. You might face criticism. You might have to adjust your course, but rarely will a single decision destroy you. The weight you feel is often an illusion. Fear wants you to avoid discomfort, but discomfort is how you grow. The Stoics remind us that hardship is not to be feared. It is to be embraced. It is through struggle that we develop resilience, wisdom, and strength. When faced with a difficult decision, instead of asking, "What if it goes wrong?" ask, "What if it makes me stronger?" The person who moves forward despite fear is the one who will ultimately succeed. Don't seek certainty where it doesn't exist. Life is unpredictable, and no amount of overthinking, planning, or waiting will guarantee a perfect outcome. Many of life's most significant choices, who to marry, which career path to follow, where to live, come with no absolute certainty. Yet people often fall into the trap of waiting for some invisible guarantee, believing that if they just analyze the situation a little longer, the right answer will magically appear. But certainty is a mirage. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of our mental anguish comes from an obsession with the unknown, but no amount of excessive planning can prevent the unexpected from happening. This is why the Stoic mindset is so powerful. It doesn't rely on controlling the uncontrollable. Instead, it focuses on controlling the only thing that matters, your response. When you let go of the need for certainty, decision-making becomes much easier. You don't need a 100% guarantee. You only need to trust that whatever happens, you will handle it. That is real confidence, not certainty, but resilience. The world is unpredictable, but you are capable. Once you accept that, every choice becomes an opportunity rather than a source of anxiety. If you're afraid of failing, you're afraid of learning. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's an essential part of it. Every great leader, every master of their craft, every person you admire has failed more times than they can count. The difference between them and the people who remain stagnant is that they saw failure as feedback, not a dead end. Think about your own life. The moments that shaped you, that truly changed you, were never the easy ones. They were the times when things didn't go as planned, when you struggled, made mistakes, and had to push forward despite setbacks. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that obstacles weren't problems, they were the path. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, failure isn't something to avoid, it's something to embrace. The truth is, the only real failure is refusing to try in the first place. A decision made out of fear of failure is a decision made in weakness, but a decision made with the understanding that even failure will teach you something, that is a decision made in strength. When faced with a difficult choice, ask yourself, am I avoiding this because it's truly wrong, or am I avoiding it because I'm afraid of failing? If it's the latter, then you know what you must do. Move forward anyway. Growth requires discomfort. It's tempting to choose the safe and familiar path. Comfort feels good in the short term, but in the long term, it often leads to stagnation. If a choice scares you but excites you at the same time, that's usually a sign you're on the right track. This is because real growth happens in the space between fear and ambition. You don't become stronger by staying where you are. You grow by stepping into the unknown and proving to yourself that you can handle it. Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and later became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, knew this better than anyone. He taught that hardship is the training ground of the soul. Just as a strong body is built through resistance, a strong mind is built through challenge. The reality is that growth is often painful. It requires letting go of old habits, pushing through discomfort, and facing situations that test your patience and resolve. But what's the alternative? To stay the same forever? That's not a life of progress. It's a life of stagnation. The key is to stop seeing difficulty as something to be avoided and start seeing it as proof that you are evolving. The next time you stand at a crossroads, don't just ask yourself, what's the easiest option? Instead, ask, which choice will make me stronger? If you avoid the path of growth because it's uncomfortable, You're choosing short-term ease over long-term strength. But if you embrace it, despite the difficulty, you are choosing to become someone greater than you are today. Every decision shapes your character. The choices you make today determine who you become tomorrow. When you look back on your life, will you be proud of how you faced challenges, or will you see a pattern of avoidance and hesitation? The best choices are often the hardest. The most fulfilling relationships require effort. The most rewarding careers demand patience and perseverance. The greatest personal achievements are built on discipline and sacrifice. And yet, when faced with a tough decision, people often look for the path of least resistance. They ask, "What's easiest?" instead of "What's right?" But if you want to live a life of meaning, you have to stop seeking the easiest way forward and start choosing the path that strengthens you. This doesn't mean making reckless decisions or seeking out suffering for its own sake. It means recognizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from avoiding difficulty. It comes from overcoming it. So when you're faced with a tough choice, remember, difficulty isn't a sign that you should walk away. It's a sign that you're stepping into something meaningful. Ask yourself, will this decision make me more or less of the person I want to be? Let your answer guide you. Your character is more important than winning. Sometimes doing the right thing comes at a cost. It may mean losing opportunities, disappointing others, or facing temporary setbacks. But in the long run, integrity is the only thing that truly matters. People often make choices based on what will get them ahead the fastest. They compromise their values to gain approval, to avoid conflict, or to secure an immediate advantage. But at what cost? If you gain everything but lose yourself in the process, have you truly won? Seneca warned against chasing external success at the expense of inner peace. He knew that material gain, social status, and fleeting victories mean nothing if they come at the price of your own integrity. In the end, the only true wealth is a mind at peace with itself. So when faced with a difficult decision, ask yourself, if I make this choice, will I still respect myself tomorrow? If the answer is no, then no amount of external gain is worth it. The temporary discomfort of standing by your principles is far better than the long-term regret of betraying them. No decision is ever final. One of the greatest mental traps people fall into is believing that a single choice will define the rest of their lives. This fear creates unnecessary pressure and makes decision-making far more stressful than it needs to be. But the truth is, even wrong choices can be corrected. Life is fluid. Circumstances change. People grow. Very few decisions are truly irreversible. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. If it is not, then stop complaining. Either way, it will pass." Whatever choice you make, you will adapt. Understanding this removes the burden of perfection. You don't need to make the right decision every time. You just need to make the best decision you can with the information you have, knowing that if you need to adjust, you will. The worst decision is no decision at all. Indecision breeds anxiety, stagnation, and regret. The longer you hesitate, the more you remain stuck in a place of uncertainty. And while no choice is perfect, the act of deciding is what moves you forward. In the end, life isn't about getting every decision right. It's about making decisions with courage, learning from them, and moving forward no matter what. Do not be paralyzed by overthinking. The mind has a way of creating problems that don't exist, turning simple decisions into overwhelming dilemmas. The more you ruminate, the heavier the burden becomes, making it seem as if no option is right. But this is an illusion. Overthinking does not lead to clarity. It leads to exhaustion. The truth is, many of life's biggest decisions are best understood in hindsight, not in the moment. The Stoics taught that action brings clarity, not endless deliberation. If you sit and analyze forever, you will never move forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop thinking and start doing. If you're at a crossroads, choose the best option with the knowledge you have, and trust that if you need to adjust later, you will. Progress is made through movement, not excessive hesitation. If a decision keeps you stuck in place, ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? Then do that. Even if you don't feel fully prepared, take a step forward. Life rewards those who act, not those who overanalyze. If you make a mistake, you will learn. But if you do nothing, you will remain in the same place, burdened by indecision. Many great decisions look crazy at first. When people throughout history took bold action, they were often met with skepticism, doubt, and ridicule. But greatness never comes from following the crowd. It comes from seeing what others don't, from trusting yourself, even when no one else does. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." If you're afraid of making a decision because it seems unconventional or risky, consider whether that fear is coming from genuine caution or the desire to conform. Sometimes, what seems like madness to the world is actually the sanest choice you can make. Take any major breakthrough, whether in science, art, or philosophy, and you'll see that those who made an impact were often seen as reckless at first. But they understood something most people don't. The safest path is often the most limiting. If you want to live a meaningful life, you must be willing to take risks. So before you dismiss an idea as too crazy, ask yourself, am I rejecting this because it's truly unwise, or because I'm afraid of stepping outside the norm? If it's the latter, then you may be on the verge of something great. History is written by those who dare. Adversity shapes character. Every tough decision carries the potential for hardship. You may fail, you may struggle, you may face setbacks, but that does not mean you made the wrong choice. The Stoics understood that difficulty is not a punishment, it is a teacher. Epictetus, who was born into slavery and endured great suffering, did not see adversity as something to be avoided. He saw it as the training ground of the soul. He taught that just as a strong body is built through resistance, a strong mind is built through challenge. This means that if a decision leads to hardship, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you are being shaped. The more you endure, the more resilient you become. Hardship forces you to grow in ways comfort never could. When making a difficult decision, ask yourself, will this choice make me stronger? If the answer is yes, then even if it leads to challenges, it is worth it. The path of least resistance may seem appealing, but it rarely leads to greatness. Hardship is not the enemy. It is the forge in which character is built. And when you come out on the other side, you will realize that every difficulty was preparing you for something greater. So do not fear adversity. Embrace it. It is shaping you into who you are meant to be. Trust that you will adapt. One of the greatest fears that paralyzes decision-making is the belief that if we make the wrong choice, we will be doomed, trapped in irreversible failure. But this is rarely the case. Human beings are incredibly adaptable. No matter what happens, you will find a way forward. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, reminded himself daily that obstacles are not barriers, but redirections. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that even if a choice leads to unexpected difficulties, you will adjust, learn, and find a new path. You are not a fixed entity. You are fluid, capable of navigating whatever life throws at you. Think back to a time when you were faced with uncertainty, when you feared you wouldn't be able to handle what was ahead. Yet here you are, still standing, having endured things you once thought you couldn't survive. This is proof that you're more capable than you believe. When making a tough decision, remind yourself, I will figure it out. Because you always have, and you always will. Life is unpredictable, and it always will be. No decision comes with a guarantee of success, but every choice teaches something valuable. When you step into the unknown, you expand your resilience. Each challenge you overcome builds confidence in your ability to adapt. Over time, this trust in yourself becomes a powerful force. It liberates you from fear-based decision-making. You begin to see obstacles not as threats, but as stepping stones. Even a bad decision is better than no decision. The worst choice you can make is to make no choice at all. Indecision is stagnation, and stagnation is a slow death. Life rewards movement, not hesitation. The Stoics taught that the only true failure is refusing to act. A bad decision at least moves you forward, even if it leads to mistakes. Mistakes are teachers. They refine your judgment, strengthen your resilience, and provide clarity for the future. But staying stuck in fear, waiting for the perfect choice, leads to nothing but wasted time. Seneca warned against this kind of passive existence, saying, "While we wait for life, life passes." If you are stuck in endless deliberation, unable to move forward, you must ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Often the fear of making a mistake is simply the fear of being uncomfortable, but discomfort is the price of growth. It is better to make a decision and correct course if needed than to sit in paralysis, allowing life to move forward without you. When in doubt, act. You can always adjust, but you cannot reclaim lost time. The truth is, most decisions are not as irreversible as they seem. The human mind magnifies the consequences of failure, making us believe that one misstep will lead to ruin. But history shows otherwise. The most successful people are not those who avoid mistakes, but those who learn from them and adjust. Action breeds clarity. When you move forward, you gain real-world feedback that helps you refine your path. Doing nothing, on the other hand, teaches you nothing. If you are at a crossroads and fear is keeping you frozen, ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? Often the answer is not as catastrophic as your mind suggests. Even if things go wrong, you will learn, you will adapt, and you will emerge stronger. Stagnation, on the other hand, guarantees that nothing improves. So choose movement, choose progress, choose action. Let go of what you can't control. No matter how much thought and effort you put into a decision, you can never control every outcome. The future is unpredictable, and trying to master every variable is an exercise in futility. The Stoics had a powerful principle known as the dichotomy of control. Epictetus taught that there are two categories in life: things within our control and things beyond it. Our actions, thoughts, and choices fall into the first category. Everything else, the reactions of others, the twists of fate, and the uncertainties of the world, fall into the second. Trying to control what is uncontrollable only leads to anxiety and frustration. Instead, focus on what is in your hands: your ability to think rationally, your effort, and your integrity. Once you've made a decision with wisdom, let go. Do not waste energy agonizing over what may happen. This mindset frees you from unnecessary stress. If things go well, you have gained success. If things go poorly, you have gained wisdom. Either way, you win. By releasing your grip on the uncontrollable, you gain peace, clarity, and resilience in the face of whatever comes next. Life is not about eliminating uncertainty. It is about learning to walk forward despite it. A great example of this principle in action is the life of Admiral James Stockdale, a U.S. Navy officer who was held as a prisoner of war for 7 years during the Vietnam War. Stockdale applied Stoic principles to survive extreme hardship. He focused only on what he could control: his attitude, his resilience, and his ability to endure. He did not waste energy worrying about when or if he would be freed, because that was beyond his control. Instead, he used his time in captivity to strengthen his mind and help his fellow prisoners endure. His survival was not the result of wishful thinking, but of radical acceptance. He accepted reality as it was, controlled what he could, and let go of what he couldn't. This is how Stoicism teaches us to handle difficult decisions. You will not always have control over the outcome, but you always have control over your response. This lesson is crucial in everyday life. Whether you are deciding on a career change, navigating a difficult relationship, or making a financial choice, recognize the limits of control. You cannot control whether an employer hires you, but you can control how well you prepare. You cannot control how someone feels about you, but you can control how you present yourself. Many people suffer not because of their circumstances, but because of their expectations. They expect the world to be predictable, people to be fair, and outcomes to align with their hopes. But this is not reality. By letting go of unrealistic expectations and focusing only on what you can influence, you gain peace of mind. You stop agonizing over the uncontrollable and start directing your energy where it truly matters. There is a freedom in surrendering to this truth. You don't need to know exactly how things will turn out. You just need to take the best step available to you with full effort and wisdom. If things go as planned, excellent. If they don't, you adjust. Either way, you remain unshaken. This is the mindset of a Stoic. Instead of fearing the unknown, embrace it. Instead of demanding certainty, cultivate adaptability. Instead of resisting life's unpredictability, learn to navigate it with grace. In the end, life is not a script where every decision must be perfect. It is a dynamic, unfolding story, and you are the author. The pen is in your hands. Will you hesitate, paralyzed by fear? Or will you write boldly, trusting that you can handle whatever comes next? The choice is yours. Attachment leads to suffering. This is one of the fundamental truths taught by both Stoicism and Buddhism. The more you cling to something, whether it's a person, a job, an idea, or an outcome, the more pain you invite into your life when things don't go as planned. The reality of life is that change is inevitable. People leave, careers shift, opportunities come and go, and the world moves forward regardless of whether you are ready or not. The Stoic approach to decision-making requires a deep understanding of non-attachment. This does not mean being indifferent or careless. It means engaging with life fully while recognizing that nothing is truly yours to keep. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." This wisdom is especially important when making tough choices. If you are holding on to a relationship that is clearly toxic, ask yourself, am I staying because I genuinely believe in this, or because I'm afraid of letting go? If you are clinging to a career that no longer serves you, ask, am I staying because it aligns with my values, or because I fear change? Many people remain trapped in situations long past their expiration date because they mistake attachment for loyalty or fear for responsibility. When you recognize that suffering often comes from attachment, you gain the ability to make decisions with a clear mind. You are no longer making choices based on fear of loss, but on what truly aligns with your well-being. You start seeing life as a series of open doors. Some you walk through, some you close behind you, but you never stay stuck in a hallway of indecision. Knowing when to quit is an underrated skill. Society glorifies perseverance. You hear phrases like "never give up" and "winners never quit." But in reality, knowing when to walk away is just as important as knowing when to push forward. The Stoics understood that not all battles are worth fighting. Epictetus taught that wisdom comes from recognizing what is and isn't worth your effort. There is honor in persistence, but there is also wisdom in recognizing when something no longer serves you. Imagine you are sailing a ship and you find yourself caught in a storm. The waves are relentless, the winds are pushing you off course, and no matter how hard you fight, you are going nowhere. A foolish captain would keep battling the storm, insisting that he must prove his strength against nature. A wise captain would recognize that the smartest move is to change direction, find shelter, or wait for calmer seas. The same logic applies to decision-making in life. If you are investing time and energy into something that is draining you with no sign of improvement, ask yourself, am I holding on because I still believe in this, or because I don't want to admit I was wrong? Many people continue down harmful paths because they fear that quitting means failure. But true failure is wasting years of your life on something that no longer aligns with who you are. Knowing when to quit is not about giving up. It's about redirecting your energy towards something more meaningful. Some doors are meant to be closed, and there is wisdom in walking away. Not everything deserves your energy. One of the core lessons of Stoicism is learning to choose your battles wisely. Life presents countless challenges, arguments, and distractions, but not all of them are worth your attention. A wise person does not waste their energy on petty conflicts, unnecessary drama, or things beyond their control. Marcus Aurelius warned against being consumed by trivial matters, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Too many people drain themselves emotionally, mentally, and physically over issues that in the grand scheme of things are insignificant. Ask yourself, will this matter in a month, in a year, on my deathbed? If the answer is no, then it's not worth sacrificing your peace over. For example, arguing with a stranger on the internet will not improve your life. Obsessing over someone else's opinion of you will not make you stronger. Chasing validation from people who do not respect you will only leave you exhausted. Imagine that your energy is like a bank account. Every day, you wake up with a limited amount of mental and emotional currency. If you spend it all on things that don't matter, like worrying about gossip, stressing over minor inconveniences, or engaging in pointless debates, you will have nothing left for the things that truly deserve your focus: your growth, your purpose, your loved ones, and your peace of mind. Making tough decisions requires discernment. It requires the ability to step back and ask, is this worth my time, my energy, my peace? If the answer is no, let it go. Direct your attention to what truly matters. Strength is not found in fighting every battle. It is found in knowing which battles are worth your effort. The Stoics remind us that life is short, and time is the one resource we can never replenish. Every moment you spend worrying about the wrong things is a moment stolen from something more valuable. Choose wisely. Let go of past mistakes. One of the greatest burdens people carry when making decisions is the weight of their past. Regret, guilt, and over-analysis of previous failures can cloud judgment, making every choice feel like another chance to get it wrong. But the past is not a life sentence, it is a lesson. The Stoics understood that what has already happened cannot be changed, and therefore it does not serve you to dwell on it. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." In other words, mistakes are not something to lament, they are something to learn from. When making a difficult decision, ask yourself, am I hesitating because of past failures? If the answer is yes, recognize that this is just fear talking. A mistake from the past does not dictate the future unless you let it. Every wise person has made bad choices, and every strong person has overcome failure. What matters is not what happened before, it's what you do now. Think of a skilled archer. If he misses a shot, does he waste time grieving the arrow that flew off course? He studies his mistake, adjusts his aim, and releases the next arrow with greater precision. Your decisions should follow the same logic. Learn, adjust, and move forward. The only mistake that can truly harm you is the one that makes you afraid to act again. Acceptance is a decision too. When faced with a tough situation, many people assume that their only choices are to fight, change, or fix what is in front of them. But sometimes, the wisest decision is to surrender, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. The Stoics taught the power of amor fati, the love of fate. This means embracing reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Imagine you are in a battle against a strong current in the ocean. You can struggle, exhaust yourself, and fight against the waves. Or you can accept the current and swim with it, using it to guide you to a new path. The same principle applies in life. There are moments when resistance is noble, but there are also moments when acceptance brings freedom. Epictetus advised, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This is the art of surrender, not inaction, but the conscious decision to stop fighting against the inevitable. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means recognizing when something is beyond your control and redirecting your energy to what actually matters. Think of relationships that have ended, careers that have reached a dead end, or life circumstances that cannot be changed. Clinging to what was only prolongs suffering. The person who learns to say, "I accept this reality and will make the best of it," gains peace and clarity that others never achieve. When making a difficult decision, ask yourself, am I fighting something I cannot change? If the answer is yes, then perhaps the wisest move is to let go, breathe, and allow life to unfold as it must. Stop chasing what no longer serves you. People often continue down paths not because they are the right paths, but because they have already invested so much time, energy, and identity into them. The fear of change, the discomfort of uncertainty, and the pressure to prove past choices right can trap someone in a cycle of wasted effort. But here's a harsh truth. A bad investment does not become good just because you've spent years on it. The Stoics remind us that clinging to what no longer serves us is a form of self-sabotage. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is a reminder that life is too short to spend chasing things that drain your soul. Whether it's a relationship that has run its course, a career that no longer aligns with your values, or a dream that no longer excites you, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Imagine a man carrying a heavy backpack through a long journey. At first, everything in the bag seemed important, but as the journey continues, the weight becomes unbearable. If he refuses to let go of unnecessary items, he will never reach his destination. Your life works the same way. What once mattered to you may no longer be relevant. Clinging to it out of habit, fear, or pride will only slow you down. Ask yourself, am I pursuing this because it still brings me growth and fulfillment, or am I chasing it because I'm afraid to let it go? If something no longer serves your higher self, be courageous enough to pivot. Some of the most successful, happy, and wise people in the world are those who knew when to change course. They did not waste time trying to revive something that had already ended. They redirected their focus to what truly mattered. The next time you face a difficult choice, consider these 3 lessons. Let go of past mistakes, accept what you cannot change, and stop chasing what no longer serves you. Together, they form a powerful framework for making decisions with clarity and courage. The past is behind you. Fate will unfold as it must, and your energy is too valuable to be wasted on things that no longer align with your path. True wisdom is not just knowing what to pursue, it is also knowing what to release. Endings are new beginnings. In the moment, endings often feel like failure, loss, or even punishment. When a relationship ends, a job is lost, or a dream collapses, the immediate reaction is often grief or fear. But the Stoics remind us that every ending is also the beginning of something new. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." The issue is not the ending itself, it's our attachment to what was. Think of a tree shedding its leaves in autumn. To an observer who does not understand nature's cycles, it may look like the tree is dying, but in reality, it is preparing for renewal. Without letting go of the old, the new cannot come. The same principle applies in life. When a door closes, it forces you to walk through another. And often, that new path is exactly where you were meant to go. The key is to stop resisting endings. Instead of mourning what is lost, shift your focus to what is now possible. A failed business venture might be the push you needed to discover a new career that suits you better. The end of a relationship may free you to find deeper self-love or a connection that aligns more with your values. Life is always changing. Fighting against change only leads to suffering. Instead, embrace the flow. Ask yourself, what new beginning is hidden in this ending? What you see as a loss today may turn out to be the greatest opportunity of your life. Forgiveness is a power move. Many believe that forgiveness is about the other person, that it's about excusing their actions or letting them off the hook. But the Stoics saw forgiveness differently. They understood that harboring resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Epictetus advised, "Whoever is unjust, let him be so." Your task is to maintain your own tranquility. In other words, forgiveness is not about them, it's about freeing yourself from bitterness. Imagine carrying a heavy weight everywhere you go. This weight represents grudges, anger, and past hurts. Each step you take is harder because of the burden on your back. You might think that holding on to this anger gives you power, but in reality, it only weakens you. The person who wronged you has already moved on. You are the one still carrying the pain. True strength lies in letting go. This does not mean allowing people to walk over you or pretending that harm didn't happen. It means refusing to let someone else's actions control your emotions and dictate your future. Forgiveness is not submission, it is mastery. It is looking at a situation, understanding it fully, taking the lessons, and then refusing to be weighed down by it anymore. Ask yourself, am I holding on to resentment that is draining my peace? If so, it's time to release it, not for their sake, but for yours. A mind free from bitterness is a mind that can focus on the present, move toward the future, and make clear, wise decisions. Holding on to anger is like trying to win a battle that no longer exists. The wisest move is to lay down the sword and walk forward in peace. Detach from your ego. So many of life's toughest decisions are made harder because of pride. We hesitate to admit we were wrong, to take a step back, or to choose the path that looks less impressive to others. The ego whispers, "You must win. You must prove yourself. You must be right." But the Stoics knew that the strongest people are those who are not controlled by their ego. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In other words, do what is right, not what feeds your image. Pride can cloud judgment, making simple choices unnecessarily complicated. If you have made a mistake, the wise move is to own it, learn from it, and correct course, not to double down just to save face. Think about an argument where both sides refuse to back down, not because they believe in their position, but because they don't want to appear weak. Neither side wins. The same applies to major life decisions. If you're holding on to a job, relationship, or commitment purely because your ego doesn't want to admit defeat, then you are allowing your pride to control your future. Humility is strength. Being able to say, "I misjudged," or "This no longer serves me," or "It's time to change direction," is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. The ability to detach from your ego allows you to make decisions based on truth, not self-image. Ask yourself, if I removed my ego from this equation, what would the best choice be? The answer to that question will almost always be the right one. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and philosophers in history were not those who clung to their pride. They were the ones who knew when to step back, shift perspective, and choose wisdom over ego. Together, these lessons, embracing endings as new beginnings, forgiving as an act of power, and detaching from ego, form a framework for making life's hardest decisions with clarity and wisdom. Every ending is a doorway to something greater. Forgiveness clears your path, removing emotional burdens that cloud judgment, and humility ensures that you are choosing based on truth, not pride. The next time you face a tough choice, step back. Ask yourself, am I resisting an ending that is actually a beginning? Am I carrying resentment that is clouding my mind? Is my ego making this choice harder than it needs to be? Answering these questions honestly will guide you toward the right path, one built on wisdom, strength, and inner peace. Your gut feeling is data, but not a verdict. Many people make the mistake of either ignoring their intuition entirely or blindly following it without question. The Stoics teach us to approach every internal signal with curiosity rather than blind faith. When something feels off, that discomfort is information. It is an invitation to explore deeper, to question assumptions, and to ensure that emotions are not distorting reality. Consider a time when you met someone and instantly felt uneasy. Perhaps there was no clear reason, you just had a bad feeling. Was this your subconscious picking up on subtle cues, like body language or tone? Or was it a projection of past experiences onto the present? Similarly, think of a moment when an opportunity excited you, but upon reflection, you realized you were drawn to it for the wrong reasons: status, external validation, or fleeting comfort. This is why intuition must be tested against reason. The mind is constantly processing information beneath the surface. Intuition can be the result of accumulated wisdom, but it can also be shaped by unconscious biases, past traumas, or fears masquerading as insight. Just because something feels wrong does not mean it is, and just because something feels right does not make it wise. True discernment comes from examining where those feelings originate. Rather than seeing your gut instinct as a decision maker, see it as an early warning system. If you feel hesitation, pause and ask yourself, is this a true instinct, or is it fear in disguise? If you feel excitement, question whether it is genuine enthusiasm or merely the pull of immediate gratification. This pause, this moment of self-examination, is what separates emotional reactivity from Stoic wisdom. Balancing intuition with rational thought is essential. The Stoics were not coldly logical to the point of ignoring emotion. Instead, they sought mastery over their responses by ensuring that emotion and logic worked together. When making a difficult decision, gather facts, weigh consequences, and check for distortions in perception. Use both your heart and mind as tools of discernment, rather than letting one overpower the other. Imagine standing at a crossroads, faced with a major life choice, whether to stay in a relationship, pursue a career change, or walk away from something familiar. Your initial reaction might be fear of uncertainty, the pull of nostalgia, or the temptation of ease. But wisdom does not act on first impulses. A Stoic will step back and observe the situation from a distance, as if advising a friend. They will ask, is my hesitation a warning? Or is it my comfort zone resisting change? Is my excitement real? Or is it my ego seeking approval? A good rule of thumb is this: when intuition and reason align, that is often a strong indication of the right path. When they conflict, it is a sign to slow down and seek more clarity. If logic tells you one thing but your gut says another, investigate the source of the contradiction. Perhaps you are underestimating your ability to handle change. Perhaps your mind is being clouded by external influences. A wise person does not rush. They sit with the discomfort and extract the truth from it. Not all instincts are right, and this is where many people get lost. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom, whispering warnings that have no basis in reality. It is easy to mistake the discomfort of growth for a signal to turn back. Many avoid change not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. The Stoics trained themselves to recognize this pattern, to see fear not as a stop sign, but as an opportunity to strengthen resolve. Picture someone who has always struggled with self-doubt. Their instinct might be to decline an opportunity because they feel unworthy. If they listen to that voice, they will remain stuck. But if they question it, if they challenge the assumption that they are not ready, they might find that the fear is irrational. Similarly, someone who is naturally impulsive might feel a rush of excitement about an investment or relationship. If they do not pause to examine whether that excitement is grounded in reality, they may later regret their haste. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This applies to decision-making. External events may be uncertain, but how you interpret and respond to them is within your control. If you are ruled by unchecked instincts, you are at the mercy of emotion. If you master the ability to step back and evaluate, you gain control over your choices. So how do you refine your intuition? First, by learning from experience. The more you reflect on past decisions, both good and bad, the better you understand your own patterns. Look at times when following your gut led you astray. Were you acting out of fear, insecurity, or ego? Look at times when ignoring your intuition led to regret. Was there a warning sign you dismissed? Over time, this awareness sharpens your ability to distinguish genuine wisdom from emotional noise. Second, by removing distractions. Many people struggle with decision-making because their minds are too cluttered. Social media, endless opinions, and external pressures drown out inner clarity. A Stoic seeks moments of solitude to hear their own thoughts without interference. Walking alone, journaling, or simply sitting in stillness can provide the space needed to separate true intuition from passing emotion. Third, by embracing discomfort. If every time you face uncertainty, you retreat into comfort, you will never build trust in your own judgment, the ability to sit with fear, to resist the urge for immediate answers, and to wait until clarity emerges is a skill. The more you practice it, the more reliable your intuition becomes. When making tough decisions, apply these filters. Is this choice aligned with my principles? Am I acting out of fear or wisdom? Will this matter in a year? What would I advise a friend in my situation? By consistently running decisions through these questions, you develop a more refined inner compass. Wisdom is not about eliminating feelings. It is about understanding them. It is about knowing when to trust your gut and when to question it. It is about stepping back when emotions cloud judgment and leaning in when instinct and reason align. It is about choosing growth over comfort, clarity over impulse, and truth over fear. At the heart of Stoicism is the belief that the mind can be trained. The ability to make better decisions is not something you are born with. It is something you cultivate. Every choice is an opportunity to sharpen that skill, to move closer to mastery over your own mind. And in that mastery, you will find not just better decisions, but a stronger, calmer, and more resilient version of yourself. Silence your mind to hear your true answer. In a world of endless noise, social media, news, opinions from friends and family, your own inner wisdom often gets drowned out. The mind, like a stormy sea, cannot reflect truth clearly when it is disturbed. The Stoics understood that wisdom emerges in stillness. If you cannot find clarity, it is not because the answer does not exist. It is because it is buried beneath distractions, fears, and external pressures. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, frequently reminded himself to retreat within. He wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." This means that answers often do not require more input, but less. If you are wrestling with a tough decision, stop seeking more opinions, stop scrolling, and stop drowning yourself in over-analysis. Instead, remove yourself from distractions, sit in silence, and simply observe your thoughts without reacting to them. This is the practice of meditative clarity. Many people believe they need to figure things out by forcing the mind to work harder, but clarity is rarely achieved through force. It is found through stillness. The practice of silence, whether through meditation, deep breathing, or a solitary walk, allows wisdom to rise to the surface naturally. By stepping back from external noise, you can finally hear the voice of reason within. If a choice continues to bring anxiety, it may not be the right one. If a choice, after deep reflection, brings a sense of quiet conviction, it is likely the correct path. The right choice feels lighter. When you are burdened with indecision, it is often because one path is in conflict with your values, your deeper truth, or your long-term well-being. People think that hard decisions always feel difficult, But in reality, the right decision often brings a sense of relief. Even if it requires courage, even if it disrupts your life temporarily, it doesn't carry the same weight of inner conflict that the wrong choice does. Think of times in your life when you felt a burden lifted after making a tough decision. Perhaps you left a toxic relationship, turned down an opportunity that did not align with your principles, or walked away from a situation that drained your energy. The decision may have been difficult externally, but internally, something in you knew it was right. That feeling of lightness is a signal from your inner wisdom. Contrast this with times when you made choices out of fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of stepping into the unknown, fear of change. These decisions often feel heavy, as if you are carrying something that does not belong to you. The Stoics teach that suffering often comes from resisting what we know to be right. The weight you feel is not from the decision itself, but from the battle between what you should do and what you want to avoid. You already know the answer, you're just afraid to act. How many times have you asked for advice, not because you needed guidance, but because you wanted permission to do what you already knew was right? People often delay making decisions, not because they lack clarity, but because they fear the consequences. They seek validation, hoping someone else will take responsibility for the choice. But deep down, they know. Fear of action is one of the greatest obstacles to wise decision-making. It masquerades as uncertainty, convincing you that you need more time, more opinions, more signs. But ask yourself, if you had to decide right now, without seeking another opinion, what would you choose? If you knew no one else would judge you, what would your heart say? If you stripped away fear, which path would remain? The Stoics remind us that avoidance is a decision in itself. Delaying action does not prevent consequences, it only prolongs them. If a building is on fire, refusing to exit does not stop the flames, it only traps you longer. Likewise, when a decision is necessary, postponing it does not remove the difficulty, it only increases your suffering. The longer you resist what you know to be right, the heavier the burden becomes. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This is especially true in decision-making. We imagine all the ways a choice could go wrong. We picture the worst outcomes. But when we finally act, we often realize that the consequences are never as bad as we feared. The real suffering was in our own hesitation. Trust yourself. The more you practice making decisions based on your principles rather than fear, the stronger your judgment becomes. Each time you face a tough choice, you are training your ability to act with wisdom and conviction. The more you listen to your inner truth, the more reliable it becomes. Some decisions will change your life. Others will be small but significant. What matters is not whether every choice is perfect, but whether every choice is made with integrity. When you silence the noise, follow the path that brings peace rather than weight, and act despite fear. You embody the Stoic way. Ultimately, wisdom is not about knowing every answer. It is about having the courage to trust yourself when the time comes to decide. Not choosing is also a choice. People often believe that avoiding a decision spares them from responsibility, but the truth is, inaction itself is a decision, one with consequences of its own. When you refuse to act, the situation continues to unfold without your input, and you surrender control to external forces. Many people hesitate out of fear, hoping the problem will resolve itself, but more often than not, avoidance only allows problems to grow. Think of someone in a toxic relationship who refuses to leave because they don't want to make the tough decision. In their mind, they are delaying action, but in reality, they are choosing to stay. Their inaction is reinforcing the status quo. The same applies to an unfulfilling job, a declining friendship, or a personal goal that keeps getting postponed. Every moment spent avoiding a decision is a moment spent making the passive choice to let things remain as they are. The Stoics remind us that we must take responsibility for our choices, including the ones we avoid making. There is no escape from decision-making, only the illusion of it. Even if you do nothing, life will continue moving forward. The question is, do you want to be an active participant in shaping your future, or do you want to drift wherever the currents take you? Clarity comes from action. Many people wait until they feel absolutely certain before making a decision, but certainty is often the result of taking action, not the precursor to it. Waiting for clarity can become an excuse for inaction, leading to a cycle of doubt, hesitation, and paralysis. Imagine trying to navigate a dark room. You can stand still, overthinking every possible step, or you can move forward slowly, letting each step reveal more of your surroundings. The more you move, the more you see. The same principle applies to life. Taking action, any action, provides feedback. It shows you what works, what doesn't, and what adjustments need to be made. Seneca wrote, "We learn by doing." Wisdom is not found in endless contemplation, but in engaging with reality. Sometimes the best way to figure out the right path is to start walking. If you find that you've gone the wrong way, you can adjust. But staying frozen in place only prolongs uncertainty. This is why Stoicism emphasizes progress over perfection. The great Stoics didn't expect to have all the answers before acting. They understood that life is an ongoing process of refinement. You make the best choice you can with the knowledge you have, then you adapt as you gain more experience. If you are stuck in indecision, ask yourself, what small step can I take today? It doesn't have to be drastic. It could be sending an email, having a conversation, or committing to a plan for a single day. Action breeds momentum, and momentum leads to clarity. Doubt is part of the process. Many people assume that if they feel uncertain about a choice, it must mean they are making the wrong decision. But uncertainty is not a sign of failure. It is a natural part of growth. The only people who never experience doubt are those who never push themselves beyond what is familiar. Think about every major decision in your life. Did you feel 100% sure before taking that leap? Or was there an element of fear, a whisper of doubt in the background? The truth is, doubt often accompanies meaningful choices. It signals that you are stepping into the unknown, venturing beyond your comfort zone, and that is where growth happens. The Stoics understood that absolute certainty is a myth. Epictetus taught that we should not seek control over things that are inherently uncertain. The future is always unknown. There is no way to guarantee the perfect outcome of any decision, but we can control our response to doubt. We can choose to move forward with courage, trusting that we will handle whatever comes next. Doubt only becomes dangerous when it turns into paralysis. If you wait until all uncertainty is gone before acting, you will never act at all. The key is to acknowledge doubt without letting it control you. Instead of thinking, "What if I fail?" shift your mindset to, "What if I succeed?" Instead of worrying about making the wrong choice, recognize that every choice is a chance to learn. Even if you make a decision that doesn't go as planned, you will gain wisdom from the experience. Every challenge faced, every setback overcome, builds resilience. The worst choice is not making the wrong decision. It's making no decision at all and missing the opportunity to grow. At the core of Stoicism is the belief that we cannot control everything in life, but we can control how we respond. And that response, in itself, is a choice. Instead of fearing doubt, embrace it as proof that you're stepping into something significant. Let it be a sign, not of danger, but of expansion. If you feel uncertain, if doubt lingers in your mind, take that as an invitation to move forward, not with reckless impulsivity, but with the quiet confidence that whatever happens next, you will face it with strength. This is the Stoic way, to make decisions with wisdom, knowing that perfection is impossible, but progress is always within reach. Your first instinct is often right. When faced with a difficult decision, people tend to overanalyze, question themselves, and drown in endless possibilities. The initial gut feeling you have is often a reflection of your accumulated wisdom, past experiences, and subconscious reasoning working in the background. However, when doubt creeps in, overthinking muddies the clarity that was there from the start. Think of the times you have regretted not trusting your instincts. Maybe you had a bad feeling about a business deal, but convinced yourself it was worth the risk, only to suffer the consequences later. Perhaps you sensed that someone was being dishonest with you, but instead of acting on that intuition, you dismissed it, only to realize later that you were right all along. The problem is that the mind, when left unchecked, loves to complicate things. It seeks certainty where none exists and clings to what feels familiar rather than what is best. Stoicism teaches us to trust ourselves, but not blindly. A wise person does not follow every impulse, but they also do not ignore their inner wisdom. The key is to separate fear-based reactions from genuine intuition. If your first instinct is based on past lessons, moral values, or a deep inner knowing, it is likely pointing you in the right direction. But if your gut reaction is driven by anxiety, external pressure, or a need for immediate gratification, pause and reassess. The goal is not to act on impulse, but to recognize that clarity often exists before overthinking has a chance to cloud your judgment. To refine this process, consider how the ancient Stoics approached decision-making. They did not blindly follow their emotions, but they also did not ignore their inner voice. They used logic, reason, and self-awareness to determine whether a choice aligned with their values. This is how Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire without succumbing to doubt. It is how Seneca navigated a politically dangerous world while maintaining his moral integrity. They understood that the first instinct is often right, but only if it is grounded in wisdom, not fear. Use the dichotomy of control. This Stoic principle is one of the most powerful tools for making decisions with peace of mind. It teaches us to separate what is within our control from what is not, and to only invest our energy where it truly matters. Many of life's toughest choices become easier when filtered through this perspective. Imagine you are agonizing over whether to take a new job. You fear the unknown, worry about what people will think, and feel torn between staying comfortable and taking a risk. But if you apply the dichotomy of control, the decision simplifies. You cannot control whether the new job will be perfect, whether your boss will like you, or whether the company will succeed in 5 years. What you can control is your preparation, your ability to adapt, and your mindset in approaching the opportunity. By focusing only on what is within your power, you eliminate unnecessary anxiety. You stop worrying about what others will say because their opinions are outside your control. You stop trying to predict the future because it's unknowable. You focus instead on making the best decision with the information available, knowing that whatever happens, you have the strength to handle it. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that external circumstances are indifferent. Only our response to them matters. If you are facing a difficult choice, ask yourself, am I stressing over things I cannot control? If the answer is yes, release that burden. Act with wisdom, let go of the outcome, and move forward without worry. Another way to apply this principle is to practice premeditatio malorum, the Stoic exercise of mentally preparing for possible outcomes. If a choice is difficult, ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? Then, mentally walk through how you would handle that scenario. In most cases, you will find that even the worst outcome is something you can survive. This process not only reduces fear, but also reinforces confidence in your ability to navigate uncertainty. Prioritize virtue over comfort. Many people choose what is easy instead of what is right. They stay in jobs that do not fulfill them, relationships that drain them, or habits that weaken them, not because they believe these choices are good, but because change is uncomfortable. The Stoics, however, believed that the right decision is always the one aligned with virtue, even if it is the harder path. Virtue, in Stoicism, consists of 4 pillars: courage, wisdom, justice, and discipline. When faced with a tough decision, measure your options against these values. Does the choice require courage? If so, it is likely the right one. Growth requires stepping into discomfort, and avoiding a decision out of fear is rarely wise. Is the decision based on wisdom? Wisdom comes from clear reasoning, not from reacting impulsively or seeking short-term pleasure. If an option aligns with deep understanding rather than fleeting emotions, it is the right path. Does it align with justice? Justice in Stoicism does not refer to legal justice, but to fairness, integrity, and doing what is right, not just for yourself, but for others. If a decision requires betraying your principles or harming someone else for your benefit, it is the wrong choice. Does it require discipline? The best decisions often demand patience, sacrifice, or delayed gratification. If a choice challenges you to be better, stronger, or more disciplined, it is likely the correct one. It is easy to choose what is comfortable, but comfort is deceptive. It soothes in the moment, but often leads to stagnation. The right decision is the one that shapes you into a stronger, wiser person. It is the one that aligns with your highest values, even if it is difficult. And ultimately, the temporary discomfort of choosing virtue will always be outweighed by the long-term peace of knowing you did what was right. These 3 Stoic principles, trusting your instincts, using the dichotomy of control, and prioritizing virtue, are interconnected. Together, they provide a framework for making life's toughest decisions with confidence. Trust yourself, focus on what is within your power, and always choose character over comfort. In doing so, you will not only make better choices, you will become a better person. To reinforce these ideas, consider the words of Epictetus. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. This understanding alone can transform your approach to decision-making. It allows you to move forward without hesitation, knowing that you have done all you can, and the rest is up to fate. The ancient Stoics understood something that many people struggle with today. Indecision is often worse than making the wrong choice. The greatest regrets in life rarely come from choosing wrong, but from failing to choose at all. Inaction leads to missed opportunities, wasted time, and a life dictated by fear rather than purpose. Every decision, no matter how small, is an opportunity to practice wisdom, courage, and self-mastery. Whether it is a career move, a relationship decision, or a personal goal, the same principles apply. Trust your instincts when they are grounded in reason. Focus only on what is within your control. Choose virtue over comfort, always. If you adopt this mindset, you will find that decision-making no longer feels like a burden, but like an opportunity. An opportunity to test yourself, to grow, to live with integrity, and ultimately, to live a life that is not just good, but excellent. Avoid decision paralysis. One of the most dangerous traps in decision-making is waiting too long. Many people hold off on making choices because they want absolute certainty. They fear making the wrong move, so they keep analyzing, seeking more information, and hesitating. The problem is, life does not wait. The longer you delay, the more opportunities you miss. In Stoicism, inaction is often worse than a mistake. Marcus Aurelius believed that the only real failure is failing to act. Even a wrong decision teaches something valuable. If you make a mistake, you can adjust, learn, and move forward. But if you never make a choice, you stay stagnant. Progress is made by those who are willing to act despite uncertainty. Think about how many people stay in unfulfilling jobs, unhealthy relationships, or bad situations simply because they don't want to make a difficult decision. They tell themselves they need more time to think, but in reality, they're afraid of change. They are waiting for a perfect answer that will never come. A Stoic approach is to take action even when uncertainty exists. If you have considered the best available information, weighed your values, and still feel stuck, the answer is to move forward. You will never have all the answers, but you have enough to act. Choose the best path based on wisdom, then adapt as needed. Decision paralysis is a disease that destroys potential. The cure is movement. Analyze costs and benefits with a Stoic lens. Every choice you make comes with a cost. Some decisions cost time, others cost energy, some cost your peace of mind. But people often fail to calculate these costs properly. Instead, they focus on short-term gain or what feels good in the moment. Stoicism teaches that true cost-benefit analysis is about more than money or immediate results. It is about your values, your well-being, and your long-term growth. Before making a tough decision, ask yourself, what will this cost me in time, energy, or peace? If a decision brings temporary success but destroys your integrity, is it really worth it? If it brings short-term comfort but long-term regret, is that a fair trade? Many people chase external rewards, money, status, approval, without considering the hidden costs. A high-paying job that consumes your soul is expensive in ways that money cannot fix. Staying in a toxic relationship just because it is familiar costs you peace and self-respect. The Stoics remind us that true wealth is not just material, it is freedom from unnecessary suffering. Seneca warned against spending life on things that drain the soul. He believed that people waste their most valuable resource, time, because they do not realize its worth. When faced with a tough decision, analyze not just what you gain, but what you lose. The right choice is often the one that protects your inner peace, even if it costs you comfort in the short term. Compare options based on principles, not preferences. Preferences change. Values don't. People often make decisions based on what feels good in the moment, rather than what aligns with their deepest beliefs. The problem is, what feels right today may not feel right tomorrow, but a decision made from principle will stand the test of time. Consider a situation where you must choose between two job offers. One pays more, but requires you to compromise your integrity. The other aligns with your values, but offers less money. If you base your decision purely on preference, wanting a higher salary, you might later find yourself unhappy, regretting that you sacrificed your morals for material gain. But if you choose based on principles, staying true to your character, you will always have peace with your choice, regardless of external outcomes. Marcus Aurelius emphasized living according to nature, meaning living in alignment with one's highest self. He knew that desires and external circumstances shift, but virtue remains constant. If you make choices based on Stoic values, wisdom, courage, justice, and discipline, you will never make a decision that betrays who you are. This principle also applies to relationships. Many people choose partners based on attraction or convenience rather than shared values. They ignore red flags because they like the person, but later realize that liking someone is not the same as being truly compatible. If you base your choices on principles, seeking a relationship built on respect, trust, and shared values, you create something lasting. Stoicism teaches that preference is fleeting, but principle endures. When faced with a tough choice, ask yourself, am I choosing what is easy or what is right? The right choice is the one that remains true to your deepest values, even if it is harder in the moment. All three of these lessons, avoiding decision paralysis, analyzing costs with a Stoic mindset, and making decisions based on principles, are interconnected. When you stop waiting for certainty and act, you free yourself from stagnation. When you assess the true cost of a decision, you avoid hidden pitfalls. And when you choose based on timeless values rather than temporary desires, you make decisions you can live with, no matter the outcome. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This is the essence of making good decisions. First, define the kind of person you want to be. Then, make choices that reflect that vision. There is no such thing as a perfect decision. Life is full of uncertainty. But a person who acts with courage, who considers the true cost of their actions, and who chooses integrity over ease, will never regret their choices. The goal of Stoicism is not to make decisions without difficulty. It is to make them with wisdom, knowing that whatever comes, you have chosen well. If you apply these principles, you will find that tough decisions become less paralyzing. You will learn to move forward with confidence, understanding that clarity often comes after action, not before. You will recognize that every choice is an opportunity, not just to shape your future, but to shape yourself. The Stoic path is not about choosing what is convenient. It is about choosing what is right. And in the end, that is the only decision that truly matters. Ask yourself, is this decision driven by ego? Many of life's toughest choices are made more difficult because of ego. Ego is the voice that tells you to prove yourself, to win at all costs, or to avoid looking weak. It is the part of you that seeks validation from others rather than inner peace. And when ego is in control, decisions become about appearances rather than substance. Imagine you are in a disagreement at work. Your pride tells you that you must win the argument, even if it damages relationships or makes future collaboration difficult. If you let your ego drive your decision, you may escalate the conflict unnecessarily. But if you step back and ask, is this about truth or about me wanting to be right? You create space for a wiser choice. Stoicism teaches that the best decisions come from reason, not pride. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that people's opinions were fleeting, that chasing status was a distraction, and that in the grand scheme of life, most conflicts are insignificant. When faced with a tough decision, the Stoic approach is to remove personal attachment. Instead of asking, "How will this make me look?" ask, "What is the wisest, most virtuous course of action?" If you find yourself hesitating on a decision, question whether it is your ego creating resistance. Are you afraid of losing face? Are you clinging to an identity that no longer serves you? Are you making this choice to impress others rather than to align with your values? The moment you strip away ego, the right decision often becomes clear. Seek negative visualization. When facing a difficult choice, people often get stuck because they fear the unknown. They imagine everything that could go wrong and let that fear paralyze them. But the Stoic response to uncertainty is not to avoid thinking about worst-case scenarios. It is to confront them head-on. This is the practice of premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. Instead of ignoring your fears, you bring them into the light and examine them rationally. If you are worried about leaving a job, imagine what would happen if things did not work out. Would you lose everything? Or would you adapt, find another way forward, and ultimately be fine? If you are afraid of a difficult conversation, consider the worst possible response the other person might have. Would it destroy you? Or would you handle it and move on? Seneca famously said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of our fears are exaggerated. When you actually confront them, you realize that even the worst-case scenario is often manageable. And once you see that, fear loses its power. Negative visualization does not mean dwelling on failure. It means preparing yourself mentally so that nothing catches you off guard. If you can accept the worst, then you can move forward with confidence. This is why Stoics were fearless in decision-making. They understood that the mind creates most of its own suffering, and that by facing fears directly, they could free themselves from hesitation. The next time you struggle with a tough decision, pause and visualize the worst that could happen. Then ask yourself, if this happens, can I handle it? More often than not, the answer will be yes. And once you realize that, you can make your choice with clarity and strength. Recognize that doing the right thing rarely feels easy. Many people believe that the best decision should feel good, that if they were making the right choice, they would feel complete certainty or relief. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. The best decisions are often the most difficult ones. Think about the times in your life when you had to stand up for yourself, walk away from something harmful, or take responsibility for a mistake. None of those moments felt easy, but they were necessary. The path of integrity is rarely comfortable. It demands courage, resilience, and the willingness to face discomfort in the short term for long-term peace. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that life is not about seeking pleasure, but about living in accordance with virtue. If a decision is difficult, that does not mean it is wrong. In fact, it often means it is exactly what you need to do. Consider a person stuck in a toxic friendship. They know they should distance themselves, but they fear confrontation. They tell themselves it is easier to stay, to avoid the awkward conversation, to keep the peace. But deep down, they know that avoiding the issue only prolongs the pain. The right decision, setting boundaries, walking away, feels uncomfortable now, but leads to a healthier, freer life. This is true for any difficult choice. The right decision is often the one that requires more effort, more courage, more discipline. It is the choice that demands self-reflection, that forces you to grow, that pushes you beyond what is easy into what is meaningful. The Stoics saw hardship not as something to be avoided, but as a natural part of life. They understood that strength is built through struggle and that the most valuable things in life require sacrifice. When making a decision, do not ask, "Is this easy?" Ask, "Is this right?" Once you accept that doing the right thing may bring short-term difficulty, you stop hesitating. You stop waiting for an easier path to appear. Instead, you face the challenge, knowing that discomfort is temporary, but integrity lasts forever. These three principles, removing ego, confronting fears through negative visualization, and accepting the difficulty of doing what is right, create a powerful framework for decision-making. When you set aside pride, you see situations with greater clarity. When you visualize the worst, you remove fear's ability to control you. And when you accept that integrity is rarely comfortable, you stop looking for shortcuts and start making choices that truly align with your values. Epictetus taught that our opinions, not events, are what disturb us. This means that our struggles with decision-making are not about the decisions themselves, but about our mindset. We hesitate because we attach our ego, we magnify our fears, and we expect the right path to feel easy. But the Stoics teach us that real power comes from choosing based on reason and virtue, not emotions or comfort. When you find yourself stuck on a difficult choice, pause and reflect. Are you making this decision out of pride? Are you allowing imagined fears to dictate your actions? Are you waiting for an easy option that will never come? If so, shift your perspective. Step back from your emotions. Visualize your fears and see them for what they are, shadows, not real threats. And remind yourself that the hardest choices are often the ones that shape you the most. Making tough decisions is not about eliminating all doubt or discomfort. It is about developing the strength to act despite them. The more you practice this mindset, the more resilient you become. You will find that decisions that once seemed impossible now feel manageable. You will see that the greatest power you have is the ability to choose with wisdom, regardless of how difficult the choice may be. This is the Stoic way, not to seek ease, but to seek truth, not to avoid struggle, but to embrace it, not to wait for certainty, but to move forward with courage, knowing that no matter what happens, you have made your decision with integrity. And that, in the end, is the only thing that truly matters. One of the greatest challenges in making tough decisions is the emotional weight that comes with them. Fears, desires, and attachments cloud judgment, making simple choices feel impossible. But the Stoics had a powerful technique to cut through this emotional fog: the outsider's perspective. Imagine for a moment that you are no longer the one facing this decision. Instead, a close friend, or even a total stranger, comes to you, explaining the exact dilemma you are in. They describe their options, their worries, and their uncertainty. What would you tell them? When you mentally remove yourself from the equation, you begin to see the situation with fresh eyes. Emotions no longer drive the decision. Logic and wisdom take their place. The fear that once seemed overwhelming now appears exaggerated. The doubts that kept you stuck now feel unnecessary. By pretending to advise someone else, you uncover the answer that was there all along. Marcus Aurelius practiced this detachment through what he called the view from above. He would imagine himself looking down on his life from a great height, as if observing a city from the clouds. From that perspective, his problems seemed smaller. The anxieties that once felt unbearable were reduced to temporary inconveniences. Stepping outside of emotions and asking, "If I were advising a friend, what would I say?" reveals answers that are much clearer than expected. A decision made in a state of heightened emotion is rarely a wise one. When feeling anxious, angry, or pressured, the mind becomes reactive, leading to choices based on impulse rather than reason. More often than not, those hasty choices lead to regret. The Stoics understood the importance of delayed response. Seneca once said, "He who has peace of mind disturbs neither himself nor another." Clarity comes not from rushing to action, but from stepping back and allowing emotions to settle. Think of a time when you reacted immediately to something, a heated argument, an urgent demand, or a stressful situation. Did that response serve you well, or did you later wish you had taken a moment to think before speaking or acting? When faced with a difficult choice, giving yourself the gift of time can make a difference. Even a few minutes of pause changes perspectives. If possible, sleeping on it, walking away, or returning with a clear mind allows the answer to reveal itself in the quiet space between urgency and thoughtfulness. If a situation demands immediate action, relying on principles rather than emotions ensures a more solid decision. When someone pressures you to decide right away, asking, "Would I still choose this if I had more time to think?" becomes a powerful tool to determine whether waiting is the right move. Many people make poor choices not because they lack intelligence, but because they let guilt control them. Guilt is a powerful emotion, one that makes people feel as though they must act a certain way, even when that choice is not in their best interest. People stay in toxic relationships out of guilt. They say yes to obligations that drain them because they feel they have no right to say no. They take on burdens they were never meant to carry because they fear disappointing others. The problem is that guilt does not lead to wise decisions. It leads to decisions made out of emotional self-punishment. The Stoics valued duty, honor, and morality, but they also believed that decisions should be made based on rational thought, not emotional coercion. When guilt pressures a choice, pausing and asking, "Is this truly the right thing to do, or am I just trying to avoid feeling bad?" exposes whether the decision is grounded in wisdom or unnecessary suffering. A moral choice aligns with virtue. It is the right thing to do, even if it is difficult. A guilt-driven choice, however, comes from fear. Fear of being judged, of hurting someone's feelings, or of not living up to an expectation. Seneca warned against living a life dictated by others. He reminded people that time is limited and should not be wasted trying to please everyone. If someone tries to make you feel guilty for choosing what is right for you, recognize it as manipulation. The Stoic way is to stand firm and make decisions from a place of wisdom, not guilt. Many people delay making tough decisions because they are waiting for absolute certainty. They want to know for sure that they are making the right choice before they act. But life does not offer that guarantee. The Stoics believed that certainty is an illusion. No matter how much analysis is done, no matter how many pros and cons lists are made, perfect knowledge of how things will turn out will never exist. And that is okay. Epictetus taught that people should focus only on what is within their control. This means that instead of chasing certainty, the goal should be making the best possible choice with the information available at that moment. If waiting for the perfect time to act, waiting may last forever. If waiting to be completely sure of a decision, indecision becomes a trap. Even a wrong choice is better than no choice at all, because movement, even in the wrong direction, teaches something. When in doubt, asking, "If I could not fail, what would I choose?" helps strip away the fear that keeps people frozen. Then, acting with courage, knowing that no matter what happens, adaptation and growth will follow. One of the hardest things about making tough decisions is knowing that others may not agree. As social creatures, people naturally want to be liked, accepted, and understood. But if decisions are based on what will make others happy, rather than what aligns with personal values, a life that does not feel like one's own is created. The Stoics believed that character is more important than approval. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would encounter people who were ignorant, ungrateful, or resistant to wisdom, but their opinions did not define him. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." If a decision is right, it remains right, even if others disapprove. Acting with integrity ensures that integrity is preserved, no matter what people say. The approval of others is fleeting, but a person's conscience remains forever. When faced with a choice between what is easy and what is right, choosing the latter is always the correct path, even if it means losing popularity, even if it means being misunderstood. The Stoic way is to act with honor, not to chase applause. Perhaps the greatest lesson in making tough choices is that decisiveness is a skill, not a talent. It is something trained, like a muscle. If making decisions feels difficult, starting small helps build the habit. Training to make quick, firm choices in low-risk situations strengthens decisiveness. Ordering a meal without second-guessing, picking a book and sticking with it, making a schedule and following through. These small acts of decisiveness prepare the mind for bigger decisions. The Stoics did not waste time in indecision. They weighed their options, made their choice, and moved forward. They understood that no path is without risk, but inaction is the greatest risk of all. If there is one lesson to take from Stoic decision-making, it is this: make the choice, trust yourself, and accept the outcome with courage. Adjust, adapt, and learn along the way. But do not let fear, guilt, or uncertainty prevent forward movement. Because in the end, the only truly wrong decision is the one never made. Letting go of the fear of regret is one of the hardest yet most liberating things a person can do. Many struggle to make decisions, not because they lack options, but because they are terrified of making the wrong choice and living with regret. But the truth is, no decision comes with a lifetime guarantee of never wishing things had turned out differently. The Stoics understood this deeply. Regret is often based on illusions. What could have been? What might have happened if only a different path had been taken? But these imagined alternatives are never real. They are mere fabrications of the mind, distortions of a reality that was never lived. Epictetus advised focusing on what is within control and letting go of the rest. This includes letting go of the illusion that a perfect decision exists. If every choice carries the potential for some regret, then there's no use in trying to avoid it at all costs. Instead, the wiser approach is to accept that regret, like all emotions, will come and go. Making the best decision possible with the available information and then fully committing to that choice is the Stoic way. It is not about eliminating regret entirely, but about refusing to let it dictate action. Many people believe that happiness should be the driving force behind their decisions, but Stoicism challenges this idea. Happiness is fleeting. It changes with moods, circumstances, and external events. Making a decision based purely on what will bring immediate happiness often leads to choices that are comfortable but not meaningful. Instead of chasing happiness, the Stoics urged people to pursue meaning. A meaningful life is built on choices that align with virtue, purpose, and long-term fulfillment, rather than temporary pleasure. Seneca warned against living like a slave to pleasure. He observed that those who constantly seek comfort and indulgence end up weaker, not stronger. Meaning, on the other hand, often requires sacrifice, choosing to do what is right rather than what is easy, prioritizing discipline over instant gratification, and pursuing a path that challenges growth rather than one that merely entertains. These are the decisions that lead to a life well lived. It may not always bring happiness in the moment, but it builds something far greater, a deep and unshakable sense of purpose. Emotional attachments can be one of the greatest obstacles to clear decision-making. While emotions are a natural part of life, they should not be the sole guide for major choices. The Stoics were masters of emotional discipline. They understood that strong attachments, whether to people, places, or ideas, often cloud logic. How many times have people stayed in situations that no longer serve them simply because they are emotionally tied to them? A toxic relationship, an unfulfilling job, a past version of themselves they refuse to let go of. All of these can create emotional bias that leads to poor decisions. When faced with a difficult choice, the Stoic approach is to detach, observe, and analyze the situation from a rational perspective, asking, if I were giving advice to a friend in this situation, what would I tell them? Can be revealing. Often, it is easier to see the truth when emotions are not involved. When emotional attachment is warping logic, taking a step back, pausing, and viewing the situation as an outsider allows clarity to emerge. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that nothing lasts forever. People, circumstances, and even personal identities change with time. Holding on too tightly to anything that is meant to evolve only brings suffering. This doesn't mean emotions should be ignored altogether, but they should not be given the final say in decision-making. Wisdom must always come first. Many people struggle with decision-making because they seek certainty before they act. They want to know for sure that their choice will lead to a perfect outcome. But certainty is a luxury life rarely provides. No matter how much thought, planning, or analyzing is done, every decision carries risk. The Stoics embraced this uncertainty rather than fearing it. They recognized that the only thing within control is how one responds to whatever happens next. Instead of seeking certainty, the wiser approach is to cultivate adaptability. A decision may not lead exactly where expected, but learning to pivot, adjust, and grow through challenges is what truly matters. The fear of making the wrong choice often keeps people stuck in indecision, yet making no choice is itself a decision, with its own consequences. Accepting uncertainty and acting despite it is an act of courage, one that strengthens resilience and self-trust. The way to approach tough decisions, then, is not to avoid risk, but to assess it through the lens of Stoic reasoning. What is the worst possible outcome? Can it be handled? More often than not, the answer is yes. And if it is yes, then fear loses its grip, and action becomes clear. Sometimes the hardest decisions are not about choosing between right and wrong, but between what is familiar and what is necessary for growth. Humans are creatures of habit, drawn to what feels safe and predictable. But this attachment to the familiar can be a silent enemy, keeping people in situations that no longer serve them. The Stoics valued progress over comfort. They believed that the best choices often feel uncomfortable at first because they push people beyond their perceived limitations. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that growth requires stepping into discomfort. Choosing to stay where things are easy and known might feel safer in the moment, but in the long run, it often leads to stagnation. Choosing the path that challenges, stretches, and forces adaptation leads to true strength. If a decision feels daunting, that is not necessarily a sign that it is wrong. Sometimes it is proof that it is necessary. Stoicism teaches that the mind should be trained to distinguish between discomfort that signals a bad decision and discomfort that signals growth. The former should be avoided, the latter should be embraced. A helpful question to ask is my hesitation based on true risk, or is it just resistance to leaving my comfort zone? If the answer is the latter, then the choice is clear. Growth must always win. In the end, making tough decisions is not about predicting the future, but about aligning with core principles. The best choices are not always the easiest or the most comfortable, but they are the ones that build strength, wisdom, and integrity. Letting go of the fear of regret, seeking meaning over momentary happiness, detaching from emotional bias, and embracing the discomfort of growth. These are the principles that lead to a life lived with clarity and purpose. Every decision, big or small, is an opportunity to shape the future. Waiting for certainty, fearing regret, or allowing emotions to dictate choices only leads to stagnation. The Stoic way is to choose boldly, act with wisdom, and accept whatever follows with resilience. This is the path to true freedom. Trusting that you can handle any consequence is one of the most liberating mindsets you can adopt. Fear of the unknown often paralyzes people, keeping them trapped in cycles of indecision. They hesitate, waiting for a sign, a guarantee, or a moment of absolute certainty before they act. But life does not offer guarantees. The Stoics understood that the future is unpredictable, and waiting for absolute certainty is a futile pursuit. Instead, they trained themselves to develop a deep sense of inner resilience, an unshakable trust that no matter what happens, they will adapt, endure, and find a way forward. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that external events cannot truly harm a person. Only their perception of those events can. In other words, it is not the consequences themselves that are fearful, it's the way the mind reacts to them. A loss, a failure, a miscalculated risk, all of these can be devastating if one allows them to be. But they can also be powerful teachers. They can build character, wisdom, and perspective. When making a difficult decision, it helps to ask, what is the worst that could happen? And if that happened, how would I handle it? Most of the time, the answer is not as catastrophic as the mind initially imagines. Instead of fearing consequences, embrace them. See them as part of life's unpredictable nature. Trust that even if a decision leads to an outcome you didn't expect, you will adapt and find a way forward. This mindset frees you from hesitation and allows you to make choices based on courage rather than fear. One of the most significant sources of stress in decision-making is the unrealistic expectation of certainty. Many people refuse to act unless they are absolutely sure that their choice is the right one. But what does right even mean? The reality is that life is filled with ambiguity, and very few choices come with clear-cut answers. The Stoics recognized this and trained themselves to be comfortable with uncertainty. They did not seek perfect knowledge before making decisions. They sought clarity of mind. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This applies directly to decision-making. The fear of making the wrong choice often leads people to overanalyze, to delay action indefinitely, and to remain stuck in limbo. But in doing so, they miss opportunities, waste time, and often end up regretting the time lost far more than they would have regretted an imperfect choice. The solution is to let go of the need for absolute certainty. Expect ambiguity and embrace flexibility. Recognize that there will always be unknowns. The goal is not to remove all risk, but to make the best choice possible with the information available. The Stoics did not waste time obsessing over the unknowable. They focused on what they could control, their reasoning, their virtue, and their response to whatever happened next. Making peace with not knowing everything is a skill that leads to both freedom and wisdom. Some decisions must be made with incomplete information. Life does not wait for perfect conditions. If you refuse to move forward until you have every detail figured out, you will remain stagnant while the world moves on without you. The Stoic approach is to accept that uncertainty is a natural part of existence. Rather than fearing it, use it to develop adaptability. Consider the great leaders, thinkers, and innovators throughout history. Did they have all the answers before they took action? They moved forward despite uncertainty. They understood that waiting for perfect knowledge is an illusion. They made decisions based on the best information available, adjusted as needed, and continued forward. The same principle applies to personal choices. Whether it is choosing a career path, ending a relationship, making a financial investment, or any other major life decision, you will never have all the answers in advance. And that is okay. What matters is having the wisdom to assess risks, the courage to act despite uncertainty, and the resilience to handle whatever comes next. If you are waiting for perfect clarity before making a decision, consider this. The future version of you, the one who has already made the choice and lived through the consequences, has more knowledge than you do now. But you cannot access that knowledge without moving forward. Action leads to clarity, not the other way around. Decision-making is an art, not a science. It requires balancing logic with instinct, risk with wisdom, and boldness with patience. The Stoic way is not about eliminating uncertainty, but about cultivating the mindset to navigate it with confidence. Trust that you can handle any consequence. Accept that certainty is a myth. Make peace with not knowing everything. Once you do, decision-making becomes less about fear and more about growth. Every decision you make is shaping the person you are becoming. Life presents you with crossroads, and each time you choose a path, you reinforce the kind of person you are. The Stoics believed that character is not built in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge. A tough decision is not just about choosing between options. It is a training ground for your resilience, discipline, and wisdom. When faced with a difficult choice, it is easy to focus only on the immediate consequences. People often ask, "What if I fail?" Or, "What if this makes my life harder?" But a more valuable question is, what kind of person will I become if I make this choice? This reframing shifts the focus from fear to growth. Every challenge is an opportunity to practice courage. Every setback is a lesson in patience. Every disappointment strengthens your ability to endure. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that hardship was not an obstacle, but the way forward. When making tough decisions, you must remind yourself that no matter the outcome, you are sharpening your character. A choice that tests you is a choice that improves you. The more you embrace this perspective, the more confident and decisive you will become. Mental resilience is what makes decisions easier. Many people hesitate when facing hard choices, not because the choice itself is unclear, but because they fear the discomfort that may follow. They are afraid of failure, rejection, or uncertainty. But Stoicism teaches that resilience comes from training the mind to accept what cannot be changed and to focus instead on how to respond. Resilience is not about being unaffected by challenges. It is about learning to handle them with grace. Consider how an athlete trains their body to handle physical strain. Over time, their muscles adapt, and what once seemed impossible becomes routine. The mind works the same way. If you train yourself to accept the things you cannot control, you will find that difficult choices become less intimidating. One of the best ways to build mental resilience is to detach from outcomes. The Stoics understood that while we control our actions, we do not control the results. You can make a decision based on the best reasoning available, but the future is unpredictable. If you base your peace of mind on external outcomes, you will always be at the mercy of forces beyond your control. Instead, base your confidence on the fact that you made the best decision you could with the information you had. Once you stop resisting uncertainty, decision-making becomes far easier. You will no longer feel paralyzed by what-ifs. You will trust yourself to handle whatever comes next. And when you truly internalize this mindset, you will begin to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to strengthen your resilience. Confidence does not come from avoiding hard decisions. It comes from repeatedly facing them. Each tough choice you make is another brick in the foundation of your inner strength. Most people want confidence before they take action, but true confidence is built through action itself. You do not become a skilled decision-maker by waiting for the perfect moment. You become skilled by making choices, learning from them, and continuously improving your judgment. Think about the first time you had to make a truly difficult decision. Perhaps you were uncertain, hesitant, or fearful. But once you made the choice and faced the consequences, you learned something valuable. Maybe you realized you were stronger than you thought. Maybe you saw that even a mistake was not the end of the world. Over time, each decision you make contributes to your overall sense of confidence. The problem is that many people avoid making hard choices altogether. They stay in indecision, hoping that time will resolve things for them. But avoidance does not build confidence, it erodes it. Each time you refuse to make a tough decision, you reinforce a mindset of doubt. Each time you let fear dictate your actions, you weaken your ability to trust yourself. On the other hand, every time you step up and take responsibility for a difficult choice, you reinforce the belief that you are capable. You prove to yourself that you can face uncertainty, that you can handle discomfort, and that you can navigate the unknown. Over time, this self-trust compounds. What once seemed daunting becomes manageable. What once caused anxiety now feels routine. The great leaders, thinkers, and warriors of history did not build their confidence overnight. They forged it through repeated exposure to challenges. They made difficult choices, faced failure, learned from experience, and grew stronger with each test. If you want to develop unshakable confidence, you must do the same. There is no shortcut to becoming a strong decision-maker. There is no way to bypass the discomfort of tough choices. But if you view every decision as a training ground for your character, if you embrace mental resilience, and if you build confidence through action rather than hesitation, you will become the kind of person who can navigate life's toughest choices with clarity, strength, and peace of mind. Once a decision is made, commit to it fully and move forward. One of the greatest sources of anxiety is constantly second-guessing yourself, replaying different scenarios in your mind, and wondering if you made the right choice. But the truth is, a choice made is better than a choice avoided. Indecision is the real thief of time and energy. Once you decide, trust in your reasoning and walk boldly in the direction you've chosen. The mind loves to replay past choices, dissecting them endlessly in search of a different outcome. This is an exhausting and fruitless exercise. The past cannot be changed, no matter how much you dwell on it. Instead, shift your mindset. The only thing that matters now is how you respond moving forward. Reflection is useful if it teaches you something, but endless rumination is destructive. There is a fine line between learning from past experiences and being imprisoned by them. The Stoics remind us that wisdom is about applying lessons, not reliving regrets. Life has a way of revealing unexpected benefits from even the most difficult decisions. What looks like a failure today may be the foundation for success tomorrow. A choice that leads to struggle may develop strength. A rejection may open the door to a greater opportunity. Many people look back years later and realize that their hardest moments were actually gifts in disguise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles force growth, difficulties cultivate resilience, and setbacks often position you for something greater. When you begin to see life this way, every decision becomes a stepping stone rather than a burden. Instead of fearing mistakes, you start embracing the unexpected lessons that come with them. The key is to trust that whatever happens, you will adapt, learn, and move forward stronger than before. It is important to understand that uncertainty is an inevitable part of life. No one makes decisions with perfect knowledge. Some choices will be based on limited information, and that is okay. You do not need to know everything, you simply need to make the best choice with what you have. There is no such thing as a risk-free decision, and waiting for absolute certainty often results in paralysis. Stoics understood that control is an illusion beyond a certain point. You control your reasoning and your response to outcomes, but you do not control the future itself. This is why training yourself to accept what you cannot change is crucial. Mental resilience makes decisions easier because it eliminates the fear of external factors. If you accept that you cannot predict every twist and turn, then you free yourself from the anxiety of trying to control what is uncontrollable. Instead, you focus on clarity, logic, and courage, choosing not based on fear, but on what aligns with your highest values. Confidence in decision-making does not come from knowing you will always get it right. It comes from knowing that you can handle any outcome. Most people are afraid of making choices because they fear the consequences. But the irony is, avoiding choices does not prevent consequences. It only delays them, often making them worse. The Stoics encourage courage in the face of uncertainty because they knew that confidence is built by repeatedly facing and overcoming difficult choices. By making peace with uncertainty, you begin to trust in your ability to adapt. You no longer fear making the wrong decision because you know that, even if things do not go as planned, you have the strength to handle whatever comes next. This mindset allows you to move through life with greater ease, understanding that no single choice will make or break you. You will always have the power to learn, pivot, and grow. Another crucial Stoic lesson in decision-making is understanding that every decision is a training ground for your character. The more you face tough choices, the more resilient you become. Avoiding difficulty weakens the mind. Embracing it strengthens you. Challenges test your patience, discipline, and integrity, traits that define a person's ability to navigate life successfully. In this way, decisions are not just about outcomes. They're about who you become in the process. This is why avoidance is never a wise strategy. Some people believe that by not making a decision, they can escape the burden of responsibility. But not choosing is also a choice. Inaction has consequences just as much as action does. Often, refusing to decide results in missed opportunities, growing problems, and greater regret down the road. By waiting too long, you surrender control to external circumstances, allowing life to choose for you. If you find yourself struggling to make a choice, take action, any action. Clarity comes from movement. When you stay stuck in indecision, you remain in an endless loop of overthinking. But when you take even the smallest step forward, you start gathering real information. The situation becomes clearer, your confidence grows, and you are able to adjust course as needed. Inertia creates more confusion. Action creates clarity. Doubt is a natural part of any major decision. No matter how well thought out your choice is, you will experience moments of hesitation. This does not mean your decision is wrong. It simply means you are human. The key is to distinguish between productive doubt, which leads to thoughtful refinement, and paralyzing doubt, which leads to inaction. The Stoic way is to acknowledge doubt, but not be ruled by it. One way to strengthen decision-making is by remembering the dichotomy of control. Ask yourself, is this within my power? If the answer is yes, focus on making the best possible choice based on reason and principles. If the answer is no, then move forward without worry. Anxiety arises when we try to control the uncontrollable. By applying this mental framework, you learn to focus only on what truly matters: your response, your integrity, and your effort. When faced with difficult choices, always prioritize virtue over comfort. The right decision is often the harder one. It may require sacrifice, patience, or the courage to go against popular opinion. But in the end, choosing based on the act of wisdom by courage, bravery, and justice will always lead to a stronger, more fulfilled life. Stoicism teaches that true happiness is found not in ease, but in virtue. When you live with integrity, even the toughest decisions bring peace. Avoid decision paralysis by recognizing that the longer you wait for certainty, the less progress you make. Many people hesitate because they want absolute assurance that they are making the best choice. But no such certainty exists. The only way to know is to choose, act, and adjust as needed. The faster you accept this, the faster you will move forward. A practical tool for better decision-making is to analyze costs and benefits through a Stoic lens. Instead of focusing only on immediate gains or losses, ask yourself, what will this cost me in time, energy, or peace of mind? Many decisions seem attractive on the surface but carry hidden costs. When you evaluate choices this way, you make wiser, more balanced decisions. A useful mental exercise is to compare options based on principles, not preferences. Preferences change over time. Values do not. If a decision aligns with courage, wisdom, justice, and discipline, it is the right one. This approach eliminates emotional bias and ensures that choices reflect your highest self, not fleeting emotions. Another powerful tool is to seek negative visualization. Imagine the worst-case scenario. If you can handle it, you can handle the decision. Most fears are exaggerated. By confronting them directly, you rob them of their power. This technique allows you to make choices from a place of confidence rather than fear. The Stoics understood that doing the right thing rarely feels easy. The path of integrity often requires discomfort. But what is difficult today makes you stronger tomorrow. When faced with a tough decision, remind yourself that ease is not the goal. Growth is. Choose the path that strengthens you. In the end, decision-making is a skill that improves with practice. Each choice you make builds confidence, clarity, and resilience. The more you embrace uncertainty, act with integrity, and trust in your ability to adapt, the more effortlessly you navigate life's toughest decisions. Trust in the process, take action, and move forward with courage. Mistakes are inevitable, but that does not mean they are failures. Every person who has ever lived has made wrong decisions. The difference between those who thrive and those who suffer endlessly is how they handle their mistakes. Accept that you will make errors in judgment, and when you do, resist the urge to fall into regret or self-pity. Instead, see mistakes as part of the learning process. A decision that does not yield the expected results is not wasted. It is data. It is an opportunity to refine your thinking, adjust your approach, and apply newfound wisdom. The Stoics did not believe in dwelling on the past because they knew the only thing that mattered was what you do next. The moment you realize a decision was flawed, you have a new choice. You can let it drag you down, or you can let it elevate you. One of the most powerful mental shifts you can make is to see your decisions as experiments rather than definitive life-altering events. The anxiety around making perfect choices stems from the false belief that one decision will determine everything. But life does not work that way. You are constantly evolving, and so are your circumstances. Instead of putting immense pressure on yourself to choose flawlessly, approach decisions as learning experiences. If the outcome is good, you gain confidence. If the outcome is not what you expected, you gain insight. Both results lead to progress. No scientist expects every experiment to succeed. They learn, refine, and try again. Why should your approach to life be any different? A rigid mind leads to unnecessary suffering. The strongest trees are not the ones that resist the wind at all costs, but the ones that bend without breaking. Decisions require firmness, but they also require adaptability. If you commit to something and later realize it is not working, you are not obligated to stay the course out of pride. People make the mistake of assuming that once a choice is made, it must be permanent. But wisdom is knowing when to hold your ground and when to pivot. The Stoics teach that it is foolish to persist in an action just because you started it. If a decision is no longer serving you, adjust. Flexibility is not weakness, it is intelligence. At times, a choice must be made with incomplete information. The modern world is obsessed with data, certainty, and perfect planning. But some of the most important choices in life do not come with a guarantee. No relationship, career move, or personal risk can be predicted with absolute accuracy. If you wait until you have all the information, you will wait forever. Instead, trust your ability to handle whatever comes. Confidence does not come from certainty. It comes from knowing you can adapt, even when things unfold differently than expected. This is where courage plays a role. A Stoic does not seek guarantees, they seek strength in themselves. Fear of failure is often disguised as caution, but excessive caution is its own form of failure, preventing people from taking necessary risks. Every major achievement in history required someone to step into the unknown without assurance of success. The Stoics remind us that fearing failure is pointless because failure itself is neutral. It is only our perception of it that gives it weight. In reality, every failure carries a lesson, and every setback is another step forward when viewed correctly. If you want to make wise decisions, stop avoiding failure and start embracing the lessons it brings. The weight of other people's opinions can cloud your judgment if you let it. Many people struggle with making decisions because they are afraid of what others will think. But the reality is, no matter what you do, someone will have an opinion. The harsh truth is that most people do not think about you as much as you assume they do. They are too occupied with their own lives. So why let imagined judgment dictate your choices? A Stoic makes decisions based on wisdom, not the fleeting approval of others. Public opinion is temporary, but your integrity lasts a lifetime. Many people make decisions based on short-term comfort rather than long-term fulfillment. The easy path often feels good in the moment, but it rarely leads to real satisfaction. True wisdom requires looking beyond immediate gratification and asking, will this choice serve me in the long run? Some of the most rewarding decisions in life are the hardest to make initially. Choosing discipline over laziness, growth over stagnation, or self-respect over appeasement is not always pleasant at first, but it builds a stronger, more resilient character. The person who always chooses the easy way eventually suffers far more than the one who embraces difficulty when necessary. At times, the best way to make a decision is to remove yourself from the emotional storm and look at the situation as an outsider. Imagine you are giving advice to a friend in the same position. Often, it is easier to see the correct course of action when you are not emotionally invested. The next time you are struggling with a choice, ask yourself, if I were not me, what would I advise someone else to do? This simple shift in perspective cuts through emotional fog and reveals a clearer path. Some decisions feel heavy because they involve leaving something behind. Whether it is a job, a relationship, a belief, or a habit, change often requires loss. This is where many people hesitate. They hold on, not because staying is right, but because leaving is painful. But the Stoics remind us that endings are just as natural as beginnings. The old must make way for the new. When you let go of what no longer serves you, you create space for something better. Do not fear the unknown. Embrace it as part of the journey. Another powerful mindset shift is to stop seeking happiness in every decision. Instead, seek meaning. Happiness is fleeting, but meaning is lasting. Some of the most meaningful choices in life do not bring immediate joy. They bring challenge, growth, and depth. The person who avoids difficulty in pursuit of happiness often finds neither. But the person who pursues meaning finds both happiness and fulfillment as byproducts. When faced with a difficult decision, ask yourself, what choice brings the most meaning to my life? That answer will often guide you in the right direction. Emotional attachments can distort logical decision-making. When you are deeply invested in an idea, a relationship, or a plan, you may overlook clear signs that it is no longer right for you. Sentimentality is natural, but it should not dictate major life choices. The Stoics teach the importance of detaching from emotions when evaluating a situation. Instead of asking how something makes you feel, ask if it aligns with your principles. Feelings fluctuate, principles endure. At the core of wise decision-making is the realization that nothing is permanent. The pain of making a choice today will fade. The discomfort of leaving something behind will lessen. Time moves forward regardless of whether you act, so you might as well make choices that align with your highest self. The greatest mistake is remaining stuck out of fear. Instead, develop the mindset of a Stoic. Accept uncertainty, embrace change, and trust that whatever happens, you will endure. Making decisions is not about perfection, it is about progress. Every choice you make sharpens your wisdom, strengthens your resilience, and brings you closer to who you are meant to be. Trust the process, act with integrity, and remember that no single decision defines you. What defines you is your ability to face challenges with courage, adapt when necessary, and keep moving forward with purpose. The path of a Stoic decision-maker is not always easy, but it is always worthwhile. And in the end, the sum of your decisions is the sum of your life. Make them count. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how well you analyze a decision, no choice comes with a lifetime guarantee of stability. Many people hesitate to make decisions because they are searching for certainty. But the truth is, certainty is an illusion. A career path that seems secure today may collapse tomorrow. A relationship that feels unshakable may evolve in ways you never expected. The world itself is in a constant state of flux. Clinging to the idea that a perfect decision will lock in a predictable, stable future is a recipe for disappointment. Instead, embrace the reality that life will always present changes, challenges, and unexpected turns. A Stoic prepares not by seeking certainty, but by strengthening themselves to handle whatever comes. A decision does not need to be foolproof. It only needs to be the best choice you can make with the wisdom you have now. It is common to fear that one decision will define your entire identity, that a wrong move will label you forever. But this fear is misplaced. Your identity is not built from a single choice, but from how you respond to all the choices you make. A mistake does not define you unless you refuse to learn from it. A moment of failure does not shape your life unless you allow it to. What truly matters is how you move forward. Do you let a bad decision paralyze you with regret, or do you extract lessons from it and grow? You are not one decision. You are the sum of your resilience, your ability to adapt, and your commitment to continuous improvement. The Stoics teach that nothing outside of your control, including past choices, has the power to dictate who you are. Only you decide that. There is great freedom in finality, but many people resist it. Once a decision is made, lingering on what-if scenarios is wasted energy. The past cannot be changed, and rethinking the same decision over and over does nothing but drain your mental strength. A mind that is constantly reopening closed doors is a mind that remains stuck. Instead of wondering if you could have chosen differently, embrace the path you have taken with full commitment. If adjustments need to be made, make them, but do so with intention, not regret. There is liberation in fully accepting your choices, in putting your energy into making them work, rather than second-guessing them. The moment you stop looking backward and fully immerse yourself in the present is the moment you unlock true peace of mind. The Stoic approach to decision-making is not about eliminating difficulty, but about embracing it as a natural part of life. The ultimate lesson in making tough decisions is not just about choosing wisely, but about trusting yourself enough to live with the choices you make. Strength does not come from certainty, but from confidence in your ability to face whatever happens next. By embracing unpredictability, refusing to let any single decision define you, and fully committing to the paths you choose, you step into the life of a true Stoic, one where you are no longer weighed down by indecision, but empowered by the knowledge that no matter what, you will endure. The best choice you can make in any situation is the one that aligns with your highest self, the version of you that embodies wisdom, integrity, and inner peace. This perspective shifts decision-making away from short-term gain and external validation toward long-term personal growth. Instead of asking, "What will make me happy right now?" or "What will impress others?" ask yourself, "What choice reflects the person I want to become?" This simple yet profound shift in thinking removes distractions and clarifies the path forward. Most people struggle with decisions because they are torn between what feels good in the moment and what will benefit them in the long run. It's easy to choose comfort, approval, or immediate satisfaction. But the Stoics remind us that the best decisions are rarely the easiest ones. They require us to rise above temporary emotions and choose according to our values. The right decision will often require patience, discipline, and even discomfort. But in the end, it will shape you into a person you can respect. Consider a moment when you made a difficult decision that required sacrifice. Perhaps you chose to walk away from a toxic situation, even though it was familiar. Maybe you resisted the temptation to react impulsively in anger, and instead responded with wisdom. These choices are not just about the outcome, they are about reinforcing the identity you are building. Every decision either strengthens or weakens your character. When faced with uncertainty, step outside of yourself for a moment. Imagine looking back on this decision in 5 years, 10 years, or on your deathbed. Will you be proud of the choice you made? Will it reflect the principles you hold dear? Or will you look back with regret, knowing you compromised who you were for temporary ease? There is something deeply liberating about making choices with your highest self in mind. It removes the weight of indecision and the fear of external judgment. Instead of asking, "What's the safest option?" or "What will others think?" you reframe the question to, "What would my wisest, strongest self do?" When you live this way, you cultivate an unshakable confidence, one rooted in the knowledge that no matter the outcome, you acted in alignment with your values. The Stoics remind us that life is fleeting. Memento mori, the practice of remembering that death is inevitable, guides us to make decisions that matter. When you acknowledge that your time is limited, you stop making choices out of fear. You stop hesitating. You start making choices that matter. You prioritize what is essential and let go of the noise. At the end of your life, what will you wish you had done? What decisions will have shaped the person you became? These questions are not meant to create pressure, but to give you clarity. There is no perfect decision, but there is a right one, the one that aligns with the best version of yourself. That is the ultimate Stoic lesson in making life's toughest decisions. Life is a series of decisions, some small, some life-changing. But no matter the scale, the way you approach them defines your character, your peace of mind, and the legacy you leave behind. The Stoics have given us a roadmap, a timeless philosophy that teaches us to lead with reason, not impulse, to embrace discomfort in the pursuit of wisdom, to choose integrity over convenience, and to accept that no decision comes with absolute certainty, only the opportunity to grow. Every choice you make is shaping you. The question is, are you becoming the person you truly want to be? So as you move forward, remember, clarity comes through action, courage silences fear, and the best decisions are those aligned with your highest values. Choose wisely, but don't fear mistakes. Every decision, right or wrong, is a step forward in your journey. Now, I want to hear from you. Which Stoic lesson resonated with you the most? Have you ever faced a difficult decision where Stoicism helped you find clarity? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you found value in these lessons, don't forget to subscribe. This channel is dedicated to making you stronger, wiser, and unshakable. More powerful Stoic insights are coming your way. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and let's continue this journey together.